Hey comrades, what's up? Hope everyone's doing well. So, Shining in the Holy Ark leads us directly into Shining Force 3. Not really, but introduces the Vandals, which I keep being told is important, and I vaguely somewhat remember Golem being in Shining Force 3 Part 1 at least, since that's the one I've played before, as the other two were not translated or available at the time when I had a Saturn and was playing back in the day. But anyway, so we're going to go through all three of them in this video, so this video is probably going to be hella long. This is 3 games worth of stuff. But go ahead and like, share, subscribe, and we'll go ahead and get started. The first thing I want to note is that this one starts off with a fairy and an old man. A fairy and an old man at the beginning, introducing us to starting, continuing, or moving save files or whatever. Which, finally, fucking... I don't know what they were smoking over at Shining in the Holy Ark. Like, that's not how you start a Shining game, you assholes. Camelot, bad on you. I think this is the last Camelot game, too. Excuse me. Because Sega, I think Sega Team takes over. Camelot's the one who's made like all the Shining games, as far as I'm tracking. At least all the Shining Force games. But I think they ceased to do that after this, which is why the timeline becomes kind of like irrelevant. And there's not really a connection between the games. We'll see. I've never played any of the other Shining games, so when I play through them, I'll have a better grasp. But that's vaguely my understanding from looking at stuff. All right. So, and this time I just kept the names because there's 3 different guys, and each one stars in a different story, and I just didn't want to be confusing when I'm using a guide to be like, wait, who's that fucking dude again? So they got stupid-ass names, but that's what we're going to go with. So the hero is Sin Bios? Whatever. We're going to call him Comrade here. Just kidding. That'd be so confusing. Anyway, so we get a nice shot of a town, and we see these 2 babes standing outside the manor. Oh, but before that, we get this individual wandering around the village, or the town that they're in, and he's changing forms, or it's changing forms, so that's sketchy as shit. And this changeling carries some flowers and gives it to, like, the elf babe. But before she does, or before they do, the elf babe is trying to look in on some sort of meeting going on in a manor house, and she's like moving a box around. It's all very fun. It's all very like, look what we can do with the Saturn, which I would say the Saturn is like an equivalent of like a PlayStation. I loved my Saturn. I'm not, like, no lie. If you watch any of my videos, I bring this up. Like, that might have been one of my favorite things ever. And it had like 0 games, but all the ones I had were bangers. Like this one and Dragon Warrior, or not Dragon Warrior, Dragon Force, and Panzer Dragoon Saga, and Magic Knight Re-Earth. Just fucking fantastic games. I had some like weird ones too. I get confused because I had a buddy who had a CDI, Philips CDI, which was around the same time, maybe a little earlier, in fact. And he had some weird ass like full motion video games, but I had some too on the Saturn. Anyway, but it's fun. It's very good. But if you're thinking of like Final Fantasy Tactics, that's like the level of. I mean, if you're listening, if you're watching this, you'll see how the videos look. But it's like slightly, I'd say it's roughly the equivalent of Final Fantasy Tactics, which is, again, is a PlayStation 1 game. It's just like Final Fantasy Tactics goes more with like the sprite. Well, this tries to be more of like a 3D game, which makes it kind of difficult. Just because you got to move the camera around a lot, which I'm not the biggest fan of. You do in Tactics as well, but I feel like in this, just like walking around towns and stuff, I'm like spinning this thing around trying to like look for stuff. Anyway, so we head inside and we see 3 aristocrats. There's Tybalt, Edmund, and Brutus. And yes, and they're talking about how the information we get, kind of the TLDR. Is that these guys, led by King Bartram, yes, King, that's important, because they started a republic with a king. All right, anyway. So the king and his loyal oligarchs have begun a republic because they got tired of being in the empire, and they had a separation, and there's been like a big civil war and a war. They finally like won-ish, but there's still like rebellions and kind of odd things going on. And so they're here in this town of Cerebrand, which is like a neutral port town. And it has its own like Governor Gavin Newsom, I think. I think it is Gavin. But for peace talks and to kind of like end the animosity. It's essentially like the Empire is finally like, all right, you know, like we're not happy about this situation, but it is what it is, and we're just there's no reason to keep fighting. We also learned that there's 3 princes. There's Magaron, Arwent, and like another M name. It'll come up later, I'm sure. He's one of the heroes. I think he's from the 2nd game. He's the main character. It's like Masquin is the elf chick. Yeah, it's a lot of names with them. But they're here. Oh, and then in the room is Don Taurus, who is like one of the chief knights of the kingdom, who's like a level 1 centaur guy, but everyone's like, he's so strong. Oh, and later on we meet guys like, oh, I remember fighting you on the field of battle. You were so incredibly strong. And I'm like, dude, this guy gets punked by like fucking bats. Like, way to sell. Like, his strength. Those bats must be hella strong, man. Fuck. And then Sinbios, who's the son of Conrad, and Conrad is also one of the greatest generals of the Republic, quote unquote Republic. But he's got like the sniffles, and so he sent his son instead, if I remember correctly. They also talk about how the city of Balsamo there's some concerns because there's these like atheist monks that are like preaching joy or something. Like joy is in like Kamala Harris joy, not like real actual joy that people have. Anyway, timely remark. This video finally gets released in like February. Fuck. Anyway, so the main character and Dan Turris are like super friends, and everyone's super excited for Sinbios to be there because his dad's such a strong knight and a good man, and you can trust him and something. Then Masquin, who's the elf babe, she rolls in with some flowers, and she's like, oh hey, there's somebody here to see you guys, and it's a representative from Cerebrand, which is the changeling, obviously, and he gave her the flowers, which I just get in my inventory and I don't know what to do with. I'm sure it'll come up later. So he claims that the governor is hosting some sort of like behind like closed doors peace talk with just Bertrand, the king of the Republic, and Dominic, not Dominic, it's like Dominic, something like that, the emperor. And so there's like they want to meet, and so King Bertrand's like, okay, let's go. I'm going to take, I think it's Edmund with him. Yeah. Anyway, so he tells like, hey, Sinbios and Don Turris, go out there and kind of see what's going on with the townsfolk, kind of get a read for what's going on, and just kind of like chat up the whoever you want. So it's like, cool, thanks. So we leave. We brought to leave, and Grace shows up. Grace is like one of the chicks who was hanging outside the manor in the beginning intro kind of scrawl thingy. And she's like, oh, I'm going to come with you guys. And then Masquin wants to come too, but she's being shy because she's, she pissed off Dan Tardis by like trying to sneak in the window or whatever. And he like slammed the window in her face. And he's like, get down here. And she's like, please don't punish me. And he's like, all right, you're forgiven. You may come. The fuck. So that's our team. We got Mage, Elf, Masquin. We got Grace, the healer, Dan Tardis, the knight, and Sinbios, the hero character. All right, good. That's what we start with. So we head out and we just talk to some random people. One of the funny things about this game is that they intentionally made this as like a 3-game situation with 3 different games you'd had to buy that were like all full games. But if you like did stuff in one game and carried the save over, it would like have effects on future projects or whatever, storylines and characters that could be picked up and people who lived and people who died. Because that's one of the interesting things about this game. Like characters can die and go away forever, but only certain characters. So like, for example, in one of the battles, Grace was dead at the end of the battle, but then she was fine after the battle. But Hayward, who's the guy he's like the first guy you pick up after this, he died and he like cursed our name and he was dead. And then if you don't and then he's like gone forever. Like you don't get him back. So it's like very I've never played Fire Emblem, but my understanding is a lot of those games are like that. Like if you lose a character, it's like adios, bitches. Tactics kind of did this, Final Fantasy Tactics, but it's more like a character could die, but as long as you beat the level before like their time ran out, they would be fine. So it's kind of harsh because it's just like like some of these characters are weak as shit, and if they die, it's like peace out, bitches, and it's like no, I gotta start this fucking battle again. So yeah, fun. It's like the antithesis of like enjoyment. It's like, oh, my character, he happened to get jumped because I wasn't like paying 100% attention, and now fuck, I gotta restart a save to come all the way back into this whole fucking battle again. Like, this has never been a Shining Force thing. Like, go fuck yourself, Shining Force 3. That's the worst part of this game. Everything else is fantastic. So like, for example, we talked to this guy Garrosh, and then he shows up later, and if we choose to save him, then like he'll be a character that can be recruited by the prince that we play in the second game. There's a lot of stuff like that, a lot of random stuff. Like there's like another guy, we talk to him, and then if we talk to him again in like a different game, then he'll join. But if we don't talk to him in this game and like carry that save over, then like go fuck yourself. That's not gonna happen. So we'll see how it goes with the emulation. I'm using Metafin, and it makes this claim that I'm like saving to like some sort of like hard drive in the system, but I don't know if that's actually gonna carry through or if I need to like work that around. I'm not gonna worry about it right now. I'm just gonna play through this, and then I'll fight that battle when I get there, because I'll still have this and I'll have the save game built in there. So I just won't delete anything until I get that save carried over. Anyway, back to the story. So we head out and we just like chit chat with people, and there's like the Imperials are all pissed off and the Republic people are chilling, and the people in Cerebrand are like, oh man, this is supposed to help with my money, but like people aren't buying shit. It's just like two armies like sitting across from each other, like looking at each other. Oh, we also run into Hayward. He doesn't join us here, but we can like chit chat with him. Medion, that's the name of the prince. Yeah, so at some point we wander over to the Imperial section, and we get like, we're about to get jumped by some of these like assholes who think they're tough shit. And then Campbell and Medion and Gartrusk. And so Medion is the guy, he's the youngest prince, I'm pretty sure. And he's the one he's the main character of the second part 2 game. And then Campbell's another like centaur knight, and then Gartrusk is some sort of like hideous monster looking thing. It's probably a mage, I would assume. But they show up, and then they're like, hey, you guys know who this guy is? This is Dantardus. Like, he fought me to stand still, so if you guys want to fight this guy, go nuts, but I'd probably kick your asses. And they're like, oh, no, we don't want to do that. We're going to leave. And so they'll leave. And then we like have a nice little pleasant chit chat with the prince, and it's like, oh, this is fun. Like, I've heard about you. Your dad is a great warrior, and so it'd be nice to talk to you some more. And silent protagonist of silent protagonist ... which is ridiculous, but it is what it is. And then there's like an explosion. It's like, what the fuck? And so the prince mentions that there are these masked monks, which are the monks they were having problems with in this other town that they were talking about, these like atheist kind of sketchy monks. He's like, oh, we've been investigating the masked monks because they seem to be causing problems or like getting into areas they shouldn't really be involved with. And then the bombs happen. He's like, we got to go. It might be them. And so we get like, and so we're like, oh, we better head back to like the Republic sector of like 10. As we head out, we run into these masked monks. They're like, hey, what's up, assholes? We're going to kill you because we're assholes. And so we beat the shit out of them. And Masquin calls them murderers, which they are. And then we bump into King Bertrand, who's kidnapping Emperor Dominic, and is apparently working with the masked monks. And it's like, what? And then Antares is like, you better put that Emperor down or I'll kill you. And the Emperor's like, and then King Bertrand's like, do it, bitch. And then Antares does, and he's like, that's what I thought. And so then they head up to like the Republic, and then Antares is like, hey, we gotta go figure out the fuck's going on. Like, why are we kidnapping the Emperor? And the Emperor makes some odd comment about like, oh, I see how this is going. So we head in the command center, and there's no Emperor there, but Bertrand's sitting there with Edmund and Tybalt, and we're about to say something, but then Brutus rolls in, and he's like, Bertrand, you son of a bitch, how dare you, something. And Bertrand's like, hold up, wait a minute. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And it's like, we have witnesses that say you knocked out Dominic and blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, no, I went to this meeting, and no one was there, and we just came back. And then Tybalt's, yeah, he's been here for a while. And he's like, what? And then Edmund's like, I've been with him the whole time, and nothing happened. And then Brutus is like, oh, I can trust him. He's like he never says shit. And when he does, it's always the truth. That's like, okay. And so then we start chit-chatting. It's like, well, there's going to be some issues then if there's like this guy pretending to be Bertrand who's like kidnapped the or Emperor Dormic. We better get the fuck out of here. And so then Edmund and Tybalt both are like, okay, we're going to take our armies, make a distraction. Synbios, you take the king, and you get the fuck out of here, and you go hide like at Balsarmo or whatever. And then Brutus, who's like friends with Governor Gavin Newsom, is going to go talk to him and kind of like see if he can like figure that out. And it's like, all right, cool, let's go. And so we start heading out, and when we get to the docks, which is the way out, we find that there's just like a whole batch of like Cerebrand guards that have been beat the shit out of, and it's by dun 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 fake King Bertrand and some masked monks. And Hayward is there, and he's all beat the shit out of him. So is Garrosh, the guys I mentioned before. And so they wake up. They're both archers, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, that guy's a fake. We gotta go tell the governor." And then the fake king is like, "Get those bitches." And we're like, "We'll help." And then Bertrand's like, "I got this." And we're like, "No, King, you stay the back fucking there and be the king, you dumb asshole. Like, you're not gonna run into battle with these bats that can kill like your greatest general." Fucking bats, I hate them. At least they're not as hard to hit as they are in the previous Shining Force games, but they still poison like little bitches. Thank goodness. So one mechanism in this game, or one mechanic in this game that wasn't in previous games, is like the Fire Emblem thing, where each like certain weapon types. So like if I'm a sword guy, I'm weak against like lances. If I'm like a flying guy, I'm weak against bows. If I'm a sword type, if I'm a sword type, I'm weak against lances. So there's like a little more strategy than there was previously. At first, I like ran behind somebody and hit them from behind, and I thought that was doing it. But no, hitting people from behind does jack shit. So whatever. So what we do is Dantardus runs as fast as he can to get to Garrosh right before he dies, and is like, "Hey, we got this." And he's like, "Cool, I'm going to tell the governor that it's not your fault and that there's a fake king." And he runs out of the battle. And it's like, phew, save that guy for chapter 2 or for the second game. And then the hero runs up and talks to Hayward, and as we talk to Hayward, he's like, I'm going to join you guys, and then he does, thank goodness, because he kills those bats like in one hit. Fantastic. So we crush these forces, and but while we're doing that, fake Bertrand and his two monks and the Emperor, like they get out of there. So I heal up, head outside, and during this battle, before we can like head out, the Emperor finally puts everything together. He's like, oh, wait a second, this guy's fake and you're the real king, please. That's good to know. So we hang out for a second after the battle, and we're like, Garrosh hasn't showed up. We got to just go. We got to try to rescue the Emperor before we can get away. And so we head out. And as we walk out of the town, Bertrand lets us know that there's another army led by Volton, I want to say, at the railhead. And he was kind of in reserve just in case something bad happened. And so he should be there, and we can meet up with him, and then he'll help us get out of here. But then we see the Emperor has been knocked out, and he's being carried by one of the monks. And the King Bertrand, and they're headed toward Balasimo, which is where all like the monks have been like holed up around here, preaching their like idiocracy or whatever, their joy, their misgivings of joy or whatever. And so he summons a bunch of monks and is like, get those bitches. And so we start fighting them. And mid-battle, the forces of Saraban come out, and they're like, and very loudly so everyone can hear and understand the story. They say that Garrosh came and told him that the king, King Bertrand was set up and there's a fake king, but Gavin Newsom didn't believe him, and he sent them out to like kill the true king, or to capture him and bring him back because he caused all these problems in his city. And so now we're being pincered by like the monks on one side and the Saraban guys on the other side. But thank goodness their AI is not that smart. So I killed a couple monks, and they showed up, and then I just ignored the rest of the monks who like there's a little mountain range in like the middle of this map, and they just like stayed on their side of the mountain range while I swept up like the Saraban guys who are much stronger than the monks, but not, I wouldn't say much. They're slightly stronger, mostly because they have lances and my hero has a sword, so he's weak against it. So he can only take like a couple shots. So I had to like really keep him maxed out while I worked through this. And I was looking to get everybody level 3 here, and then we clean up the rest of this battle. And we're about to head into Balsamo when General Valrant shows up. Valrant shows up, and he's like, "Oh, I watched your battle. That was awesome." And I was like, "Thanks for the help." And then he informs us that Tybalt and his crew is still pushing the Imperial army north, but that he came over here to help. And it's a good thing he did, because out of the city comes Spiril. So Spiril she's like the white general or something. I don't know. She's got beautiful red hair, and she's supposed to be hot. But she's and she wears white armor. And she comes out, and she's like, aha, Voltrant. So she doesn't see us, but she sees Valrant, like Valorant. But Valrant, and she's like, ho, it's you. Come, my white knights. And so her knights come out. Oh, before that even begins, we talk about how, like, oh, we got to be careful because the Imperials have, like, boats out here because this is, like, in their waters, right? Like, Saraband is it's like a neutral territory, but it's in Imperial waters, so they have like lots of ships around. So 2 ships roll up, and that's where Spiril, I think she doesn't come from the ship. She just comes from like the city. And then she summons her knights, the white knights excuse me. Sorry about that. So the white knights come from the ship, and she gets them lined up, and then Cruart shows, and then Spirant and Valorant, they're like talking shit to each other. And we're like hiding behind the mountain so she can't see us. And then he's like, all right, we're going to go to battle. And then Cruart shows up, which is another general. And then he's followed by Prince Errant, who is like, what's up, girl? And after they chit-chat for a second, Magaron, who is the eldest prince, the crown prince, he shows up and he's like, Spiril, better watch out. My brother has some ulterior motives to be in your good graces because he wants to fuck her. Anyway, so Magaran, he's like, where's the king? Are you not fighting the king? And Spiril's like, I would like to fight him instead and then get the king later. And Magaran's like, I'll allow it. Which is like, that's kind of shady. Like, you don't want to go get your father the king when you're like next in line to rule. Okay, fair enough. Like no one questions this. None of the generals or the other prince are like, wait a second. Like, okay, fair enough. And then she's like, excellent. And then Cruart's like, he summons some of his forces from the other boat, and she's like, how dare you think I can't handle this on my own? And he's like, no, you cunt. I'm summoning these people so that I can guard like in case they try to escape like to the west, or someone else tries to come in from the west, so that you can have like your little battle. And she's like, I'll allow it. And then the Prince Eret and Krugard are like, good, soldiers, go do that. I'm going to go hang out with the prince on this boat. And they nope the fuck out. And then Magarin's like, all right, everything looks in order here. I'll see ya. And he just like wanders back into Saraban. Oh, Lord. So then Valorant very like whispers, "Hey guys, go to Balsamo and go find the Emperor. I'll take care of this. They don't know you guys are over here doing shit. We gotta make sure they don't get here." And he's like, "Ah, Spiral, I will defeat thee." And then he goes to fight. And then we're like, okay, let's go sneak in here before Crewheart's like warriors like meander over here and start looking through the city. So we head inside, and there's just like mass monks meandering about. And Bertrand or Dantaris, one of them is like, how dare they brazenly walk around like they've done nothing? And we even go talk to one, and he's like, the fuck you gonna do? We're guaranteed freedom of religion here, asshole. Get the fuck out of my face. I'm like, wow. Like, what a douchebag. Anyway, time to stock up, buy weapons, save before the next battle. So we're running around Balsamo, something like that. And the whole place is filled with monks. The whole inn is filled with monks. They got the whole place rented out, and there's just like monks wandering around, and they're kind of assholery, but nothing too crazy. We also meet some fun people. There's a dwarf in the so this town also has like it's like a neutral town, I guess, because it has like an imperial sector and like a republic sector. And we go to the imperial sector, and they're all a bunch of assholes because we're the enemy. And then we go to the Republican sector, and there's like some dead guys. There's dead guys in like both of them. It's kind of weird. And then, but then there's Ulbrich, who's like a dwarf guy who's like, oh man, people think I'm a deserter, but I just got knocked out, and then they brought me here and like healed me up. And then Duncan, the local blacksmith, like needed help finding Toby, who's like the mayor's son, because they're homies, and he was like out and he got lost in the woods, so I went and rescued him and came back. And you're like, that's a great story. You're definitely going to join the Shining Force at some point, because here you are with a face. And then so we search around for secret items and such, and we go to the inn, and someone is like, hey, they want to see you upstairs. We go upstairs, like, oh, Symbios, you should go to the middle door. Don't go anywhere else. Of course I do, because there's more treasure up here. And then we go in and we meet File, Desharin, Basanda, and Gorite, who are the high priests of this Balsamo faith or whatever. At the beginning, they're very cordial, and we're like chit-chatting a little bit. And then we kind of figure out that they're bullshitting and start calling them out on it. And then they start cornering us in the side of the room. And we're like, shit, maybe we should route the rest of the force. And I'm like, man, this is half the force. The only people we're missing are Hayward, Grace, and Masquin, which is important because they're healing magic and long range. But whatever. And then there's like the whole time there's a red monk who's obviously tied to a chair in like the side of the room, and he like shakes his head off, and it's Emperor Dominic. And then Gorite, I think the guy, he's like the master of wind according to what he tells us when we first meet him. He like blasts us out of there, and then we're like, fuck, we gotta go back in there and save the Emperor. And then the king is like, hey, maybe we should go get the rest of the forest, because this whole place is full of monks. We might get overwhelmed. We're like, okay, cool. So we leave, and then Masquin and Grace are like, hey, we're here. We're like, cool, let's go back in. And we go in, and all the monks are gone. And the innkeepers are like, hey, this place is totally empty, and no one's been here for a while if you guys want to stay. And I was like, the fuck? And then we go to the second floor, and we're looking around, and then Bertrand's like, we're like, Synopsis and Dantaris are like chit-chatting as much as a silent protagonist can. And then King Barrington's like, no, what happened was they lured us here so it could be a decoy, because the Imperial Guard is after us, so they're going to chase us. Meanwhile, they can escape with the Emperor. And then we get like telepathic conversation with the four high priests. Like, aha, you're so smart. Yeah, you're definitely the wise general, King Barrington. And yes, you figured out exactly our ploy. So good luck, because this whole place is surrounded by the Imperial Guard. So good fucking luck getting out of here and being rescued. Oh, we're going to take off on a ship. Bye. And it's like, ruh-roh. While we're upstairs, we find like a secret passage, and it takes us to this like real asshole who's tied up, and we rescue him. He's like, I know you work for the Republic. Fuck you. I'm like, bro, we just rescued you. And he's like, whatever. Next time you see me, we'll be enemies. And he storms off. So he has a face, so he's probably a character recruiting scenario too. We head out. We head to the mayor's house, because he's got the whole town's surrounded by a big wall, but the mayor's house with Toby's at, they have like a second floor or like a roof. So we head up there, and Albricht's there, or whatever his name is, and he's like, we're surrounded, and our homie Vantel or whatever, he's having a struggle. Like the White Knight lady is really beating up on him. So I don't know if we can go that way. But you know what? Duncan has a secret passage way out of here. So if we go talk to him, we should be able to use that. So at this point, he's like, word, so I'm going to come with you guys. And he joins up with the force. We're like, hooray, now we got a door for the big axe. Nice. So we head over to Duncan's, and we chit-chat with him for a moment, and then he's like, I'm going to let you guys use the secret passage. It takes out to, like, the Dwarf Valley or whatever, and then you should be good to go. And we're like, hooray! And then Toby's like, are you sure you want to reveal your secret passage? And then Duncan's like, yeah, they're good peeps. And, Obricht, like, rescued you from the Valley of the Dwarfs or whatever, the Dwarf Valley. Anyway, so we head out, go down the well, and then we show up, and it's like, oh, hey, this place is very dangerous. This is where Toby got lost, so just be careful. There's monsters and shit. And there are! So we start fighting them. Pushed our way through Dwarf Hill. It's pretty straightforward. There's just some bandits and goons and whatnot. On the other side, we see that some bandits are chit-chatting about what's going on. Apparently, they're from the Sheriff clan or something like that, or Sheriff is their leader. I can't remember. It's one of those things. Anyway, he knew that the war between the Empire and the Republic was going to happen. He knew for a fact. And they're benefiting from this because now they can rob people, and the Imperial Border Guard and everyone else there. They're all fighting. Everyone's fighting. And so they can take care of it. Baratran mentions, like, oh, that's interesting. How did he know? There must be something going on there. And Dantaris is like, hey, bros, we got to go. Like, we got some extra time because we snuck out of that place, but we got to move it. My general thought is, well, yeah, I mean, the Bandit King said something and then he was right. It doesn't mean that there's nefarious stuff going on. I mean, obviously there is. But it's just kind of weird that it's like, obviously, that's how it's going to be. Anyway, so we kill those bandits, and right before we're about to get more information about the Sheriff clan or like the chief of the Sheriff clan or whatnot, he dies. So sad times. Then it's off to Railhead, and this is where the first chapter ends. At Railhead, we're supposed to meet with General Powdoon. We get like a nice little summary of the chapter 1, which helps because I didn't know this before. I don't remember reading this anywhere in the game. But apparently the thing that started the war in the first place was some financial issues with the Republic. I feel like the way the leaders were talking about it, the reason why was just because the Republic exists and the Empire doesn't like it because it was like a piece of them. It was a piece of the Empire that like broke off and wanted to be an empire or wanted to be a republic with the king. But they were such big fans of it. But apparently the capital of the Republic, Barand, was having financial issues like paying for the government or whatever. And so the Empire used that to attack the Holy Land, which, the Republic was not a big fan of for whatever reason. And so they were about to go to war, and that's when they called the peace conference. Then this is where we show up. And then Emperor Dominic was kidnapped, and now we're at war. And so with that, Sinbios and crew were the Shining Force. We're headed to Railhead to meet with General Prodon. End of chapter 1. Chapter 2 begins. We're in Railhead. Grace is walking around. She sees the train come in, and she heads down into the Republic. We find out that the army of Prodon is gone. They got ambushed by General Garzel, who Obrick, the dwarf guy that joined us recently, mentions, oh, General Garzel, yeah, he's very strong. I can see why General Prodon is having troubles. I wish I was out there fighting with him, but I'm here with the Shining Force. Hua. Dantaris also mentioned something about the Empire the Empire seemingly knowing exactly what we're going to do before we do it, or like meeting us places before, like kind of being one step ahead this whole time, which makes me think that there's a mole at some point. Anyway, we got some time. We spent an exorbitant amount of money according to the game because it's like really walking around and talking to people in Railhead really overemphasized the point that this train is for commercial use only, or for like transportation, like it's like transporting goods. And so it's extremely expensive for someone to get like passenger ship on it, but apparently we just have a chest full of money lying around, so we're easily able to afford it because we have the king of the Republic and whatnot. But there's a guy who's still like, there's a mansion, and that's where like the chief of like the rail line lives with his hot wife, and some guy we meet in like a hovel is like, I used to own the house the railroad chief lives in now, but I sold it to him so I could afford to ride on the train once. And now I live here. And then all sorts of employees are like, we all work here and we've all worked here our whole lives, but not a single one of us could afford to ride on the rail. It's that expensive. And then I tell some guy, who I think it's a railroad chief, it's like, oh yeah, I got passage on this train. And he's like, what? Oh man, our currency must be deflated. We got to raise prices. Because he's so upset by it. Anyway, Sinbios, me, And Mask Quinn, my girlfriend, is the headcanon girlfriend. We go for like a little date, and we walk around and just pick up a bunch of shit and Mirthrill and other things. And then as we're leaving the station after checking out the train, we see the Imperial Border Guards. They're showed up, and they're taking control of the train station to make sure that we don't escape, even though we're standing right there when they walk by. Uh-oh. So we head back to our little Republic Underground area, and we tell everybody, and they're like, oh man, what are we going to do? And someone comes up with the idea, and some other guy mentioned this to me, that like, you know, they don't really check cargo, so if you're hiding in the cargo, they'll just load the cargo on the train, and then you can ride the train for free. But that guy we talked to was like, I'm so scared, there's no way I could do that. But that's what we're going to do. So we're going to move on over to the cargo hold, hide in some cargo, and just take that train out of here to where we need to go next. We hit up the cargo area and immediately run into banditos. They're ransacking the place looking for stuff, and then we see one of them crack open a crate, and there's a young, beautiful girl there, a monk, Irene. And he tries to rape her, and she beats the shit out of him. And then the head of the banditos is like, hey, go grab her so we can rape her, or if she fights back too much, just kill her, because we can't let her see who we are. And this flying bird asshole flies up, and he's like, hey, there's a bunch more dudes over here too. And it's like, all right, kill all of them, fuck it. And so the battle begins. I rush as fast as humanly possible all my guys over to Irene so I can talk to her so she can join the force so we don't lose her, because this fucking game really wants you to do that. And then I tried egressing out, but when I did, she wasn't with me, so I had to do it again. So I just fucking quick loaded back into the battle and just like very slowly gathered all my team together and healed everybody up so I could finish up the battle. Fuck. And the boss of this fucking thing cast Tornado 2? Like the fuck? So much damage. I was like, god damn. So then I just rushed him with Dan Tardis, who's my strongest character at this point, and he cast like fucking Freeze 1 on him, which still did like 10 fucking damage. And my guys have like 17 hit points. Jeez. And then I was able to kill him, and that ended the battle. The head of the banditos, this bird motherfucker, he like flew off to hide and watch. So once I killed the dark mage, maybe once I killed everybody else off, because the dark mage was like the last one. Anyway, once he was the last guy, we rush him, and you know, he's like, wait a second, I know you. You're Senbios. You must be the Republic Army. Haha, fuck you guys. There's a huge bounty on you. I'm gonna go tell Sheriff from Clan Sheriff, the guy, the Bandito King, that you guys are around here, and we're gonna get you and get your thing. And then he flies off, and then King Beartran looks around, and he's like, fuck, this place is a mess. There's no way we're getting on the train with this, because I mean, they're not even gonna just search the area. Once they see this mess, they're gonna close the whole town down and search it. So we need to get out of here before they realize what's going on, because this is like the whole reason for this town to exist is this cargo load, and it is fucked up. So we peace out of town, and then as we're standing outside the town trying to figure out what to do next, this homeboy, Julian, who we met earlier. And Julian, for those of you who are following along, he's from Enric, from Shining of the Holy Ark, and his dad was killed by Galm. And he's presumably on a mission to defeat Galm or to get revenge or something, because when we met him in the tavern earlier, he mentions the Vandals and talks about it a little bit. This is the first time we were like hearing about the Vandals in this whole situation, and so that'll be exciting. Anyway, he essentially calls us rubes for not knowing what to do next, and then King Beartran's like, no, I know what we need to do, you asshole. We need to go find like a rail juncture, and then we can hop on the train and we can get out of here. And he's like, all right, you guys are smarter than I thought. I know where everyone's at, so we should join up. And then Dan Tardis is like, hey, you're just some fucking mercenary. Why would we join up with you? How do we trust you? And then Beartan makes some comment about like, well, if he was not a foreigner, if he was like not a mercenary, he would have already turned us in for the bounty. And then Julian like points across the map, and there's like a little battalion, and we hear them talking. They're from General Gazelle, and he's like, oh, they sent us back to Railhead to make sure, to check on it, make sure everything was doing okay. And look, it's those guys. It's the Shining Force. We got to kill them. Let's do it. Yeah. And I'm gonna make captain, and it's gonna be great. Everything's gonna be awesome. And so then Julian's like, so what do you say? I'll lead you guys to the Railhead or to the transit station, and you guys let me join up, and then we'll beat the shit out of these guys and keep going. And King Beartran's like, yo, that's dope. Let's do it. Hell yeah. And then the battle commences. This battle goes pretty smoothly. We kill some dudes, find a ruins, a couple thieves go in there. Sadly, I'm not able to catch the second thief after he opens the chest. I don't know what else I could have possibly done, as Dan Turris races to him as fast as humanly possible, and I just didn't get to it. Oh well. So I lost Protect Ring. Sad. And then we kill the battalion commander and end that. At this point, Masquin, our dream girl, questions Julian's whole purpose for wanting to help us and be involved, and he starts talking about it and then kind of trails off and then wanders off, and he's like, come, the railhead is up here. And the rest of us are just like, yeah, okie dokie. Once we get to the railhead, we find the border guard for the Imperials. They're waiting for us, maybe? Also, there's refugees. The refugees are trying to escape the Empire and get to the Republic. They're very sad about the war and everything, and they want to be saved. And then at that point, General Varlant shows up, and he mentions that he was getting beat up real bad by Spiril, and that he has the blood of the Patriots. You have the blood of the Patriots. I need to kill He's like on mad with bloodlust after losing. And then he sees the refugees, and they mention wanting to go to the Republic, and he gets super mad about that. He's like, no, you either have to join the army and sacrifice, or we're going to rob you blind and leave you there. Bad Varlant. Very bad. The border guard shows up, and they also get involved. They're like, no, we will not let you do anything to these refugees because they're Imperial citizens, and they're trying to commit treason. So we will capture them, and then we will execute them. Jeez. Fucking refuge. Poor guys. They're just like, So then Varlant gets super mad and declares that he's going to kill all the Imperials and the refugees. At that point, we step in. It's like, all right, enough's enough. Everyone needs to shut the fuck up and leave the refugees alone. And the border guard's like, no, we will kill you. And Varlant's like, you, something. And then Baratran's like, Varlant, I'm very disappointed in you. You know, we protect the innocents. We protect civilians. And anyone who wants to come into the Republic can come to the Republic. And Varlant's like, no, you will either join me or die. Do join me. And Symbiosis is like, fuck you. Absolutely not. And then he goes, rawr, I will kill everyone. And he kind of flips out. At that point, Prince Midian shows up. From all, remember Prince Midian, our homie from way back in the day, and he's got his two homies, his centaur guy, and then the monster-looking dude. And they're like, hey, oh good, King Baratran, we were looking for you. We want to have a discussion, but apparently we got to take care of this problem first. So we have a proposition. We don't want to fight our own soldiers, so you guys fight the border guards, and we will fight General Varlant, and then we can maybe have a chit-chat afterwards and kind of figure things out. How does that sound? I'm like, yep, sounds good. Okie dokie, let's do it. Battle begins. And right before it starts, King Baratran's like, hey, watch out for the trains, because that could really fuck you up. Well, good thing for the refugees I got save state, because they got killed real fast. But I was able to save them all, which is awesome, because I get 50 experience points for my entire party for doing that. This level's pretty fun, actually. You got trains going back and forth. You can switch train stuff. And yeah, you got to save the refugees. And I got lucky on my save state recoveries that they blocked a couple of attacks, because I don't know how the fuck else you're supposed to like save all these guys besides just pure random luck, because I raced toward them with like all my guys, and they still were like getting like hammed up. Anyway, so at that point, Prince Midian's fighting Valorant, and the battalion commander of this little train station area is like, Prince Midian, you need to help me. And then Prince Midian's like, I'm sorry, I can't hear you. You're too busy killing citizens of the Imperium. And the guy's like, you'll pay for this. You'll pay. And then I kill him. And I don't know. Maybe he does pay later. I have no idea. I'm assuming he does. Some illogical bullshit happens, and somehow someone went and told somebody else, and he'll get in trouble in scenario 2, which we'll get to someday, hopefully. All right. That being said, we chit chat with him. We're like, oh hey, and we kind of like corroborate each other's stories. Essentially, like the prince is like, hey, I wanted to talk to you about kidnapping my dad. Did you actually do that? And and Dantaris is like, no, we would never do such a thing. It was the high priest of the Balsam Order or whatever. And then King Baratam's like, well, yes and no. It was not me, but it was someone who looked just like me. And I was like, that's not really what you're trying to say there, champ. Whatevs. And then they talk about how, then they're like, what happened? And it's like, well, so we went in, we talked to the high priest, they had the king, they had the emperor, and then like they scooted us out, and then we came back to rescue him, and they were gone. And then they told us they had used us as a distraction for the Imperial army so they could get on a boat and get the fuck out of there. And then Prince Midian and his team are like, oh shit, that must have been that boat we saw that we didn't chase after. Damn, we were so close to rescuing the emperor. And he's like, oh man, what are we gonna do now? And then one of them's like, oh hey, General, checking my notes, Rogan, like Joe Rogan, General Joe Rogan, has a ship. He has a fleet. He might have a fleet. He has at least one boat that they can use so we can chase after him. Be like, okay, guys, well, it's been good. I'm glad we settled everything. We realized you weren't guilty, and we'll be friends again someday. And then the centaur guy, I forget his name, who is like Dantaris' equivalent on the Prince Midian side, is like, oh, someday we will drink and celebrate our victories. And Dantaris is like, yes, someday we will, my friend. And then they run off to talk to General Joe Rogan and get the boat so they can chase after Emperor Dominic. Meanwhile, we're hanging out with the refugees, and it's like, well, the train stopped. Time to hop on board. Which, again, I had forgotten, but if you had forgotten, we had tickets. So we just like, hey, sorry, I missed the train back in town with all that crazy bullshit that was going on, but hey, we got tickets, so we're ready to get on the train. And the train people are like, sure, why the fuck not? Let's do it. So we get on, and we paid for the refugees to be on there, and they're super happy about that. But you know who's not happy? My girlfriend. What's her name? Masquerin. Yeah, that's how you pronounce it, right? Masquerin. Yeah. Oh, before that, this night lady shows up, who's another babe, the centaur night lady, and she's like, "Oh, I don't know what to do with myself. I was a member of General Valorant's army, but after he got beat by Cybril, he had gone mad, and I disagreed with like what he was doing, and I tried to stop him, and he refused, and he had like a bloodlust, and I said I can't be a part of this for my honor, and then he went off, and the entire battalion got killed, and by Prince Midian, and now I tried to save my honor, but I still have no honor. I am sad." And then Dantaris is like, "Why don't you just join the Shining Force and stop being such a crazy bitch?" And King Baratin is like, yeah, do that. See, you have honor. Your honor is you can make up your honor by joining the Shining Force with us and traveling with us and serving your king. And she's like, oh, that's a good idea. I'm going to do that. So Sybil joins. That's fun. Then when we're on the train, my girlfriend Masquin is like, "Oh man, I hate this. Why we paid all this fucking money? They don't have chairs. Why we're sitting on the floor and it's all bumpy, or we have to stand. I hate this." And then Dantaris is like, "Masquin, stop being such a complainer, so a Debbie Downer." And she's like, "No, it's true. Synbios, my boyfriend. Tell him it's true." And Synbios is like, ... And Dantaris is like, oh, "Not you too." I guess we agree. And then everyone else is like, "Yeah, I kind of agree too. This kind of sucks." And Dantaris is like, "I am ashamed." Because even the king's like, "Yeah, man, I don't know about this whole situation." Anyway, and then the king's like, "Hey, Synbios, you seem kind of antsy. And it also stinks, apparently, in this cart we're in. We're like some cargo hold. We're not even like with the rest of the passengers." And so Dantaris like opens the doors on both sides to like air it out a little bit. Jeez. And then the king's like, "Oh, Synbios, you seem kind of antsy. Maybe you should go explore the train." And I'm like, "Awesome. Oh, Masquin doesn't go with me this time." Wah, wah, wah. We wander around, make friends with a chicken after finding some chicken feed next to the chicken place, and finally return to find out that there's bandits. Oh no! Before that happens, our that happens because Masquin's like, "Hey, are those bandits?" Someone's like, "It's the bush bandits." But what would they be doing here? They never attacked the trains because what's his name from Cerebrand? They're scared of his forces. And then some bandits roll into our train cart and they're like, "Scared? Fuck that. We get paid not to attack these trains. But you know what? We're getting a bigger reward for you, King Baratrin, your head from Prince." Wait, do we get the prince right now? Oh, from Prince Prince Arret. So he gave us permission to bring back your head. And then they start chit-chatting, and we start arguing with them. And then at some point, they're like, "We're going to kill you, and then we're going to slaughter all the people on this train." Because why the fuck not? Because they are assholes. Like, why? Why slaughter these people on this train? And King Bertrand calls them out for it, too. He's like, "The fuck is wrong with you people? Why are you killing people on this train? Lord Christ." Anyway, so we start fighting, and we beat the shit out of them. But as we approach, so they come at us from both sides on the train car. And then as we get to like one side of the car, they send one of their birdman assholes to unlock the train cars and to slaughter all the innocents by himself. Like, what the fuck? What is wrong with you people? Anyway, once we defeat them, we're like, "Oh man, what do we do now?" Well, we got to stop the train because we got to go back and save those people. And right as we're about to do that, Eldar and Zero show up. Who are they? There are some birdmen who work for Lord Conrad, I think, Synbios' dad. He heard about everything that went down with the peace treaty, and so he sent Zero and Eldar to find us. And while they were doing that, they saw the bandits attacking the train, and they said, "You know what? That's what we should do. We should save these people first." So immediately, King Baratrand's like, "Hey, Zero, go to the other cart, save those people, make sure they're okay. Eldar, you stay with us. We're going to head to the engineer and tell them to stop the train." Oh, also, it's super important we do that because they mention that, like, oh, hey, I know you're not flying like us and you don't know what's going on, but the bridge this train's going to hit into is completely destroyed. So it'll kill everyone on this train once it goes because we'll fly right off the bridge and we'll all be dead. So then we climb up on top of the train so that we can head to the engineering thing. And there's our old friend, Sheriff. I say old friend. This is the first time we met this motherfucker, but he's a total asshole. Oh, Lord. So he was sent by the Empire, and he is like, you are fucked. There's nothing you're going to do. You think you're going to get help, but you're not going to get help. And then King Bertrand is like, yo, let's talk. And he's like, no, fuck you. I'm going to kill you. So then we kill him and all his minions. We beat the shit out of him. He's kind of tough. He's got a big mace. So he knocked out Dantaris and Sybil. Because in this Shining Force, which is the first time, they take a little bit from that Fire Emblem, where it's like Lance is good against Sword, Sword is good against Mace, and Mace is good against Spear. And then they have like a whole separate one where it's like if you're flying, your magic users will do a lot of damage with their little wands, and also archers. So one of those makes sense. But the other one does not. Once we defeat Sheriff, and find another mithril ore just lying around on the train. Sheriff is all satapotamus. He's like, oh, I can't believe I'm dead. I can't believe you beat us. Brr, 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 brr. And then he warns Bertrand that our little friend Prince Midian's not going to help us because he's going to get fucked. And that Arent has some like secret motives because Bertrand's like, yo, bro, how'd you know we were here? How'd you know this peace conference is going to fail? What's going on? And then Sheriff's like, oh, congratulations. You're just as smart as everyone thought. But your friend Midian, there's no way he's going to get to Joe Rogan and get his boat. Ha, 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 ha. You have no allies in the Empire. So even if you save the Emperor, there's nothing you can do about it. Brah, 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 brah. And then he dies. At that point, Dantaris and Symbius are sent to stop the train because it's still rolling along this whole time. So we go talk to the engineer. And King Bertrand walks to the front of the train and just stands there contemplatively thinking about all the connections between the Bolzome cult, the Vandals, and Arwent. Arwent. After the train stops, Zero shows up and he's like, hey, I saved all the people. Don't worry about it. I'm awesome. And I'm like, yeah, you are awesome. You kicked the shit out of some dudes. We can't continue to the Republic because the bridge is out. So what to do next? So we mentioned going north to the cursed village of Quanos. And Julian's like, cursed village of Quanos, huh? To the north, you say? And then he has like a smirk. And my girlfriend, Manquinis, is like, hey, why are you smirking? What are you doing? We don't get any more of that, but the king is very worried about Midian, and so he's like, Zero, I need you to go help King Midian, or Prince Midian, and warn him that there's some nefarious shit going on in the Empire, and he needs to be okay. So him and his sister, Eldar, which I didn't realize they're related before, but Zero and Eldar are brother and sister. They hug it out, say goodbye, and Zero takes off. And this ends chapter 2, so we get another nice little summary. There is no information in this summary that we haven't already covered, and then we just roll on to chapter 3. Chapter 3 begins while we're in the village of Quaronus, and it's dark, and everyone's kind of creeped out. So there's a lot of talk, like Marquinus is like making fun of Dantaris for being creeped out, and then she's like, whisper, whisper, boyfriend, send bios. I'm also super creeped out, so I'm just giving him a hard time because it makes me feel better. And the Grace is like, I feel an evil presence. I feel like we should go search it out. And then someone's like, hey, has anyone seen Julian? He took off. Like, oh man, we got to find that guy. Oh well. So then King Bertrand's like, hey, take Grace and go find this guy. And I'm like, man, another adventure without my girlfriend. I'm sad. So we wander around. We get some more random items. There's the fairy from the beginning is running the church so that we can revive and heal and save the game. Thank goodness. And then we find a mansion, and the mansion is locked. And Grace is like, we should go get everybody, or we should go back because I'm getting a super bad vibes from this place. Like, it's super dark and super bad. And we're like, okay. So we head back, and right before we're about to leave, like the second map where the mansion is, this Elbesium monk named Khan shows up, and he's like, hey, what are you doing here? What brought you here? And before we can answer, Julian's like, aha! I'm here to kill the Vandals. And Khan's like, oh, the Vandals, yes, that's very good. And then Grace is like, the fuck are you talking about? Vandals are a myth. And then Julian and Khan ignore her and keep having a conversation about fighting the Vandals and what the Vandals mean. And then Julian reveals at this point, I think I mentioned this before, that he's from the Enric Kingdom, which is Shining of the Holy Ark. It takes place there. And that his father was killed by Golm, the Vandal there, our old frenemy, Golm, who sort of helped us out, sort of did not help us out. But apparently he's got, in Shining the Hill, it is mentioned that some people went to his mansion and he did kill them, and there was a vampire and such. So that tracks. And again, Julian is in the first game. He's like a kid in the first game that you talk to in the castle town, just like hanging out. So wow. So he wants to kill vandals, and so Khan's like, "Well, are you here for the vandal here? Do you want to kill him?" And then he's like, yes, I do. And then Grace is like, how? First of all, vandals don't exist, and even if they did, they're so powerful, there's nothing you could do about it. And then at that point, all these like zombie minions pop up, and it's like, aha, the vandal knows we're here, and he wants to fight us, but he's being a little bitch by sending his little minions out. And then Khan's like, whoa, au contraire, these are actually the village people that have been missing, the ghost, because it's a ghost town. And they've been possessed with like evil magic from the vandals, and so we should not kill them. And I have a special orb from Elbison that will, because Elbison's in direct contradiction to the vandals. I don't remember Elbison being in Shining the Holy Ark, but maybe I just kind of zoned out on that. But anyway, so I will release them using the magic of the orb. You just don't kill them. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that because it probably means I get like another cool character at some point if I don't. Okay, so this battle really drags on because it's literally Elbison very slowly working his way around the map. Well, he follows the whole Shining Force. So the whole Shining Force moves forward and just gets hit by the zombies until Elbison walks up and like dismisses their magic. And at that point, they dissolve away. There are a few enemies. There's like 3 bats and a skeleton, and then this new Lich Wizard character, which sucked because it casts that Tornado 3 spell, which hits a bunch. It's like so many guys. It does pretty good damage. But we're able to get most people to 7-8. I think Eldar is still level 6 at this point, unfortunately. But that's because she does virtually no damage and started out a level behind everybody else in anyway, so that was quite unfortunate. But, we walk around, we cure everybody, and then Julian and Connor are like, all right, fellas, thanks for helping us get to the mansion. We'll see you later. We're going to go in and fight this guy by ourselves. Bye. And then Symbiosis has ... And they're like, what? And then King Beartron's like, yes, Symbiosis is correct. We should all join together. But first, let's rest and make sure we're ready to fight this battle so we're not rushing in headlong. Symbiosis, he says so much with so little words. And they're like, oh, okay, let's do that. So then we go resurrect a couple of characters that died and get ready to fight our first Vandal. Nice. Here we go. Time to go inside the mansion. The big scary mansion, the big scary town after we save all the zombie people. So here we go. Dun, dun, dun. No one's there. Everyone's like, the fuck? And then the Vandal calls out to us from the second floor. And he's behind some sort of door. He's surprised that we have an Elbison monk with us. Khan mentions that this Vandal feels different than Vandals he's met in the past, I guess. That there's like a different vibe going on there. And then we kill our way up to the second floor. Dudes like are popping in, liches, and we're killing skeletons and like vampire bats or whatever. And once we get there and the door pops open, the guy comes out and he threatens us and he's like, oh, fuck yourself or whatever. And then Beartron mentions that this guy seems pretty weak, despite being a Vandal, as they're supposed to be like immortal, but he seems like a little nonplussed about the whole situation. During this map, I pushed my way up to level 10, and in level 10 in Shining Force 3, you can promote, so then I promote everybody. I think you can promote twice in the Shining Force 3 games, if I remember correctly, but instead of being level 20, and you can always like push further and whatnot, but I mean, whatever. I don't. Again, none of these games aren't like super challenging, so I guess you just want to make it easier for yourself, or you want to use suboptimal characters maybe, but thus far we still don't even have enough players to like fill up our seats, so whatever. Dine Tardis is very unimpressed by the whole situation by the Vandal, and Vandal's like, go fucking eat a dick. And then the Vandal himself mentions, I'm weak for a Vandal, so don't get all high and mighty on your little fucking couch. We still got to use the Elbison orb with Khan to be able to hurt him at all, but once we do that, we just like wreck shop, kill him, whatever. There's some jibber jabber. The name Galm comes up, remember from Shining of the Holy Ark, and Julian's like, ooh, Galm, blah 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 blah. And then this Vandal mentions that Galm is one of the strongest Vandals of all. And then it's humorous that Julian thinks that he can beat someone like Galm. Ha ha ha. And then at that point, Beartron brings up the alliance the Vandals have with Garvin. Garvin, he's the supposedly neutral party guy. And then the Vandal's like, oh, you are very wise, King Bertrand. Good for you. You figured it out. And we talk about the cult of Bolzame, and apparently Bolzame was an ancient Vandal king with that like 1,000-year war or whatever they talk a lot about in Shining of the Holy Ark. And that kind of like their goal is to resurrect him. And so now we have like a new game plan. The new game plan is to stop him. And then Bertrand asks if Bolzame, Bolzome has been resurrected yet. And which is an odd way. It's bad. That's bad translation because we already talked about how he's not. But okay. And then the Vandal, instead of responding, prays to Bolzame that when he returns, he'll get revenge for him and kill all his enemies. And then he dies. At that point, Bertram explains that he considered the connection between Garvin and the Vandals, and that it was very odd that Garvin was able to come up with steam technology, which is a technology that is attributed going back to like the Vandals' 1,000-year kingdom or whatever. And that no one's seen that technology in like 1,000 years. It's like written about in books and stuff. And then all of a sudden Garvin has like he's building trains and using other steam tech. And like everyone's like, where that came from? Dantaris and Khan discuss how both the Republic and the Empire have been manipulated in this whole situation by Garvin and by the cult of Bolzame. And at that point, Khan's like, well, I need to join you guys because there's some more shenanigans afoot and I want to help. And then he convinces Julian to stick with us as well. Which it didn't take a lot. He's just like, come on, bro. And Julian's like, yeah, all right. Until I see a better way to go kill Gom, I'll tag along. And then at that point, one of the 4 high monks, the hot one, what's her name, Basanda, she like pops in and is like, ooh, so you killed this guy. And then someone's like, oh, you let us here or something. And then Khan challenges her and she says, oh, not yet, you're not ready, but I'm gonna leave something for you. And we're like, what's that? And she's like, ooh, you'll figure it out. If you take care of it, then maybe you'll find me, but if not, oh well. And then she nopes out. At that point, we get like Dawn approaches the mansion. And so instead of taking a nap, we just like fought and powered through the whole night. And so as Dawn approaches, we get to walk around the mansion. There's some bats, but we don't fight them now. They're like blue bats instead of red bats. And they're just hanging out. So we find some treasure chests. We find the contract that Garvin signed. We find out that this mansion is Garvin's old mansion when he was like less notable. He was just like a noble or like a merchant's son who was like not doing so good anymore with like finances and whatnot. And so he made this deal with the devil, with the Vandals, and they gave him technology and all that stuff. We also find some books talking about like the the Innovators, which is like the main characters from Shining of the Holy Ark. So good, it's all tied together, fun. And then one of the rooms of the mansion, we find this sweet like mech like steam suit, like what's his name from the first Shining Force game. And like, that's cool. And as we inspected, this little goblin-looking dude pops up, and his name Ratchet, and he's like, what are you doing? Where's Master? What's going on? And he like sniffs the air, and he's like, oh, there's no more Vandals here. Excellent. And he hops in his little steam machine, and he's like, deuces, bitches, and he pieces out. It's like, okay. He also mentions that he worked for Garvin, but then after the Vandals took over, this guy showed up. He was working for him, but now he's free. He knew what he wants, and he created this suit so he could go hog wild. As we leave the mansion, we see this elf-looking mage guy, and he's like sitting over like the lake of water in the middle of the graveyard area in front of the mansion, looking all sour-potamus. And he mentions that he's a wizard. He actually mentions that he's a summoner, but he's just a regular wizard. And that he has the ability to control dark magic, which was his undoing. And that he needs to regain his pride, because I guess he was captured, he was one of these like... It's one of these zombie creatures, and so he joins the Shining Force, which is great because he, unfortunately for Masquigin, he is way better because she has Spark at this point because she's promoted, which is great, but it costs 8 MP, and then she has Blaze 2, which costs 5, and then this guy has Ice, which costs 3, and Ice does just as much damage as Blaze 2, so there you go. Spark is better at this point, but it's like, and this guy's name is Noon. All right, there you go. So then we look at, there's no weapons to upgrade in this area. We just like chit chat with the town folk and pick up some items and whatnot. And then we head out. And as we're leaving, we have a discussion about heading to Barand, which is the province in the Republic, but that even though it's a Republic province, the Imperial forces are all over the fucking place there. But it's still better than being here in the Imperial area. And then as we're like, oh, that'll be so easy once we get over there. And then Baritone reminds us of that fact. And then in fact, the bridge to get over to Baran is being guarded by this total asshole named General Franz. And he is like, oh, good, it's Bios's forces. I'm so excited to fight you. I've heard good things. I'm going to show you the respect of a true warrior by killing you on the field of battle. It's like, hey, bro, go fuck yourself. All right. Anyway, so we start the battle. He's got a pretty decent-sized force. I mean, they're the weak as shit, and I'm, like, over-leveled because I leveled up to promote. Like, I'm killing dudes and getting, like, 1 experience point. So way over-leveled. It's not like the other Shining Force games where as soon as you, like, re-level back to 1, it's like you gain levels like crazy for, like, the first 5 or 6 levels. This is, like, just a continuation of, like, the process. So I split my force up, and we go in 2 different directions. As one of my forces is about to approach some of Franz's guys, Spiral, we'll just call her Spiral. Spiral shows up. She's the White Knight from like way back in the day. All her knights are white, and she's like super strong. And she's the one, I think she's willing to beat the shit out of what's his face, who then we had to like at the rail station. God, what was his fucking name? Anyway, so but she seems possessed. She's just like, I must go to the Bolzame statue. I must go. And then Franz is like, Spiral, help me defeat these assholes. And she's like, I must go. And it's like, she's clearly corrupted. It's like the Nikes, right? Like when they become corrupted, they just repeat the same thing over and over again. So same story here. Same deal. Anyway, so then her forces, her and her like succubus and like a lich, they like wander right over the bridge. Just slowly over several turns. And then her forces start fighting with Franz's forces that we were about to fight, so we kind of just let them do that. I do end up killing like 1 or 2 of her guys because they like come down to fight me as well, but they're not really that tough. They're beating the shit out of Franz's forces, which I am also beating the shit out of, but they seem to do a lot of damage to his forces. And like when they come to me, they do like normal damage, and I kill them pretty quickly. So definitely some interesting programming going on there. Anyway, so then Franz is freaking out, and he's like, just leave him alone, just let him go. Like, I don't know what's going on here. And then we beat up everybody, and then we tag team Franz and kick his ass as well. And then as Franz is dying, he taunts us. He's like, oh, you think you're so good? You didn't actually beat me. If Spiral hadn't have been here and like messed up my forces, I would have won. So you can take that, motherfucker. And then he dies, and I'm like, you're dead. Like, what? I don't give a fuck if Spiral helped me or not. Like, dumbass. What a dipshit. Oh my goodness. Anyway, at that point, Don Tardis mentions that he's like, well, he might be right. Oh well, who gives a fuck? Stop. We then get 2 choices. We can race after Spiral, which Khan wants us to do because he has this whole like monologue about how the statue of Bolzame is like protecting the world from like the resurrection of Bolzame, and that it's like by his old village or something, and we have to stop her immediately, and there's yada yada yada, and then it's like, hey, or maybe we should stop at this town called Vagabond and rest up, and I'm like, oh, let's do that instead, and then we do. So it's like a caravan town, so it's a little tent city kind of situation going on. In Vagabond, we meet some Republican soldiers that were like left behind by did I write down who they were? No, they were just left behind because they were injured. There's a couple guys on a bed being treated by the people there, and then there's Justin. He's a bow knight. We hear his story. He got into a huge fight with Edmund. That's who it was, Edmund. And because of that, he got like left behind, and he's Satapotamus. And then Baratone's like, why would you fight with your general if you have so much respect and loyalty? And then Justin's like pouts like a little teenager and is like, I don't want to talk about it. Leave me alone. Get out of here. And they're like, all right, whatever, motherfucker. Like, see ya. Oh man. We also run into Ratchet again. He's just hanging out, living his best life. He's like, yo, look at me, I'm still free. Whee! And then he like runs off again, and we're like, okay. Just as we're about to leave Vagabond, good old Justin has a change of heart. He still will not tell us what his deal with Edmund is. But don't worry, we'll figure it out shortly enough, I'm sure. And it will not be that big of a deal, will it? Anyway, so we head on out, and we're chasing down Spiral, who's going to destroy the statue. And we're not able to catch up with her, partially because there's a whole bunch of monsters that get in our way. But also because Bassandra shows up, and even though the statue casts Spark 2 once against Spiral and her like main crew that rushes the statue, Bassandra, who's that evil priest lady, she heals him up, so they're able to get through that and make it happen. So while we're smashing monsters and killing her back foes, we're very sad because the statue gets destroyed. Which, after it gets destroyed, Bassandra is very pleased with herself, and she's like, "Ooh, the darkness is being released. Finally, Balsame will rise from his slumber and will help destroy the world." And then we hear a voice, and it's some guy who's like, "Oh, congratulations!" And she's like, "What is that? What is that dark force? I need to go investigate. Spiral, go kill Sinbios and his crew. But adios." And so then she takes off. And so on our way to go kill her crew, we run into like another little ruins where we can go in and get treasure. And I make the same mistake I've made almost every single time, where I just kill the thieves before they can get any of the treasure. It's I get nothing. Oh, fuck me. At that point, we rush Spiril, who is, for being like a great general, we just like kick the shit out of her. Part of the problem with the bosses in this game is there's a lot of generals. And the generals don't have magic, so they really, like, we have, like, 12 people, so we just surround them and kick the shit out of them. And unlike in the previous Shining Force games where, like, the bosses usually had some form of magical attack, they could hit multiple guys. These guys get, like, one turn, and they attack one guy, and then they're dead. And sometimes that one attack doesn't do shit. So, at that point, Bassandra pops back up, and she's like, oh no, Spiro got defeated. God damn you! And then Gollum shows up. Oh, it's Gollum from Shining of the Holy Ark. And also the guy that Julian's trying to hunt down because he killed his father from Shining of the Holy Ark. So Julian freaks out. And then Bassandra mentions that he is the strongest of all the Vandals. And if he's a Vandal, why is he getting in the way of Balsame resurrecting? And then Gollum, like, ignores her pretty much. And he's just like, oh, this is interesting. Balsame's going to wake up. I guess I'll stick around and see what goes on with that. Julian runs up. Even though Masquin tries to stop him, and it's like, "You, I will destroy you, you son of a bitch." And then Gollum like turns to him. He's like, "What? You want to destroy me? It's not gonna happen, bro. Might as well back off now. But if you really want, we'll fight." And Julian's like, "Charge!" And so he runs up at him, and then Gollum like picks him up and tosses him into the river, and he like wipes his hands clean of that. But then he's like, "All right, well, Bassandra, that was a little distracting for me. I'm gonna go take a nap or some fucking thing." So you're lucky this guy's interfered, because otherwise you'd be dead. Next time we meet, I will kill you. And then he pieces out. And Bassandra's like, "Oh, Spiro, my precious Spiro. Oh, you Sinbios, you're lucky Gollum showed up to save the day, because if he hadn't showed up, I would have helped Spiro defeat you." And in my head, I'm like, I would have kicked your ass, bitch. Like, the fuck? I wrecked Spiro. Anyway, so she picks like Spiro up, who I guess is not dead yet, and they like float off. Okay. At that point, Masquin like runs over to the river and is like, "We have to save Julian." And then Grace is like, "Yes, we should." And then King Baratron's like, "No, we don't got time for that shit. We got more important things to do." And Colin's like, How could you, as like a righteous king, turn away from your comrades or some shit?" And then Baratron's like, all right, everyone calm the fuck down. Let's go up to this bridge over here that's going to take us to where I want to go anyway, and we'll see if we can find him. So I head back to town first, because he's definitely gone. And I would like to heal up my guys and re-equip the items that I equipped Julian. So I did a trick, where I gave him like all my best artifacts, so that when he dies, I get them back, because I get everything he was holding back, and then he will maybe have that stuff in episode 2 or 3 when I go back and play those, if I can find a way to like get the saves to like carry over using the emulator. We'll see if that works. So we head to the bridge, and we're looking around, but all of a sudden General Garzel shows up. He's another one of these like emperor generals. He taunts us and says he's going to kick our ass and all this stuff. And so we start the fight. As we're just like meandering about killing the shit out of all those guys. Like, being promoted, like my guys are not gaining any levels. Like most of my guys are getting like 1 experience. The healers are generally doing better, except Khan, because he's so fucking slow. But Grace and Irene they're like leveling up fine, because every time they heal somebody, and my guys aren't taking that much damage, but even if they heal like 1 hit point, they get like 10 experience points. So Irene's like the highest level at this point. Well, the rest of my guys are like barely scrapping up to like level 2. I think I got most of my guys level 2 in this map. But as we get about halfway through the map, guess who shows up? It's Edmund. Oh, fuck that guy. And we find out why Justin was like, I can't follow him anymore. And it's because, dun, 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 he's betrayed the Republic. But he doesn't believe he's betrayed the Republic. He believes Baratron has betrayed the Republic. Because we were supposed to leave the Empire and start a Republic. And everyone was supposed to be 100% equal because the guy's a dumb shit and doesn't understand how reality works. And it's not 100% equal yet. And I'm like, hasn't this like Republic only been around for like 2 months? Like, you gotta figure this shit out, man. It's hard to start a new government and get everything going. Like, what in the world? This guy's such a dumbass. Anyway, and so Baratron's failed. So then he has to. So Edmund has abandoned the Republic. He's joined with the Empire so he can capture Baratron and kill him, and then he's going to go back and try again. And the Empire is just going to let him do it. I mean, this Edmund guy is stupid as shit. And by the end of this level, it's even more clear that he is completely retarded. But we refuse to hand Baratron over, so the fight will begin. And Edmund summons his army to, come at us from behind. And he summons a whole, 6 guys. And he's like, huh? Something's wrong. Where's the rest of my forces? And then, dun, 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 Midian shows up. And he's like, hey, I got the rest of your forces. I'm fighting them. I'm going to keep them busy. So you go ahead, Synbios, and defeat those assholes. And also, Garzel, fuck you for allying with a traitor. I hope you get what you deserve. And Garzel's like, fuck you, Prince Midian. I'm going to do what I want. And then we get some back talk from Gantrak, who is the counselor, or he might be a mage. I don't know. I haven't played Scenario 2 ever because it never came out in the US. But now that it's translated, I'm going to play through it once we get through this guy. Anyway, and then his other buddy, I can't remember his name, they're bad-mouthing Garzel and Edmund and stuff. And then they go off to do their thing. So then we team up on these assholes, and I kill the shit out of Edmund's guards in practically one turn, and we start moving across the bridge, and it's super slow because I can fit 2 guys on that bridge, and then 2 of their guys come up, and then I got just it doesn't take that much because I kill most things in 2 hits. So 1 hit from one guy and another hit from another guy, things are dead, and they are barely doing damage. I think I lost 1 guy just because he got caught up ahead, and I was like, I don't have time to go heal that motherfucker. Anyway, but we're way over leveled at this point. I don't know what way over leveled. We're over leveled at this point, so we're just really kicking the shit out of things as we go. Anyway, at some point we get to the final bridge to where Garzel and Edmund are, and we're about halfway through, and then Edmund's is like, all right, time to cut the bridge and kill these motherfuckers. And Garzel's like, excuse-moi, my soldiers are on that bridge. We are not gonna do that. And Edmund's is like, oh yeah, you won't do it? Then I'll do it. And he runs up to the bridge, and the Garzel's like, contraire, and kicks the shit out of him, knocking him off the ledge. And Edmund's is like, oh, what a way to die. And he just falls slowly into the river that Julian fell in earlier. And Garzel's like, no big deal. I was going to kill that motherfucker anyway. It's like, of course he was. He's the enemy. Edmunds is such a fucking retard. Lord. Anyway, so we kill Garzel, which again, he's a general boss, which means he goes down super fast. And he has slightly less hit points than Spiriel, which I guess is I don't know, some commentary on how she's supposed to be better general. And maybe if she had her right mind, she'd be better, but neither of them are that calm. Both of them went down in 1.5 turns. At that point, we are meeting up with Midian on the bridge, and we're talking about how he really thanks us for helping him by sending Zero, and he wants to return Zero so that Zero can be back with his sister and help. And his sister is like, come, Zero, let us go back and take care of the things we need to do in the Republic. And we see some of their Midian's minions. There's this pink-haired lady and this monk-looking dude. Well, not a monk-looking dude, a priest-looking dude. And they're sad that Zero's leaving because I guess they're all homies and whatnot. And then we say, he's like, okay. Oh, and as they're about to head off, King Baratron's like, hey, are you going to Barand? And they're like, yes, we are, which I think is the Empire capital. And it's like, oh, if you head further south from there, the Elbasems need help because their statue got destroyed. And so there's probably going to be some shenanigans there. So if you could check that out, that'd be fantastic. And then Gantrak is like, oh, that is a very good idea. We will do that. All right, we got to get going, though. So we'll talk to you later. And so we're like, okay, bye, Z. And then Khan is trying to decide if he should go. Oh, no. And then Baratron's like, Khan, do you want to go with him to your home in Elbasem? And he's like, no, I will stay with you guys for now. And then we have a little moment afterwards where Synbios is kind of standing by the river being sad. And Dantaris and Baratron are like, are you sad that Edmund's betrayed us? Let's just remember him for the general he could have been. And Baratron's like, I'm not even mad at the guy. He had principles and he stuck by those principles. And in my head, I'm like, fuck that guy. He didn't have principles. He was just an asshole, an impatient asshole. Fuck you. You're not trying to help anybody. You just wanted to take control. That guy sucks. Anyway, so then we all meander out of there to head to Aspina, which is the capital of the Republic. And the last thing we get for Chapter 3, before it kind of wraps up, is Kana standing by the bridge being like, maybe I should have given them the Orb of Elbasim so they could fight Vandals. I don't know. All right. Well, whatever. And then he heads off, and then it's like done. We get our like recap of Chapter 3, and that ends that. So we're headed now into Chapter 4. Chapter 4 here opens up with a lot of like Game of Thrones kind of shit. And I'm not talking about the fun incest bits. I'm talking about the political maneuverings and like factions within factions and all this stuff, which I'm not a huge fan of. It's kind of a tangent. The worst parts to me of Tactics Ogre and Final Fantasy Tactics is the story. Because it's just kind of like it's so much, and you got to keep track of so many different groups and people and like their bullshit, like who cares, whatever, and you keep getting introduced to like more people. And I can't remember if I think this game came out after Tactics. I'm trying to remember. I think so. It definitely came out after I say definitely, I don't know when shit came out, but I'm almost positive, I'm like 90% positive it came out after Tactics Ogre. Which is the crew. I don't know if I'm going to go the whole thing here. Okay, so Shining Force is obviously like it's the Fire Emblem for the Sega systems up until now, right? This is the Saga. The Shining Force 3 series is the end of like the tactical stuff. After this, it's a lot more kind of like action role playing and dungeon crawling and stuff. As far as I'm tracking, I haven't played any of the newer stuff, so I can't give more information on that, but we'll get there when we get there. But for now, my understanding is like this is it for this series. When it comes to the strategy, the turn-based, the tactics kind of gameplay. And up to this point, there's been like political stuff, but political stuff is in like Henri is a queen, or she's a princess, and then she's a queen, right? And then we're fighting like another kingdom. But then it's just like fucking monsters and demons and shit. And even Shining of the Holy Ark, which is like the beginning of like the Vandal cycle, which is pretty much just Shining of the Holy Ark and this, from what I'm tracking. I don't know if it continues onward. My vague understanding is that the general chronology and connection between the games kind of gets like super loose to even just like not connected at all after this point, which is too bad. But this is like, it really comes home in Chapter 4. Like, up to this point, it's like, yeah, it's all been political. And yeah, occasionally there's like it's mostly you're fighting. I mean, I guess I should have seen this coming. But it's like, you know, I guess I was confused by the fact that like, oh, okay, we're the Republic and they're the Empire. And we're trying to escape from the Empire, and then there's like these priests and the Vandals and like all this other kind of like more interesting stuff. But we spend like the entire beginning of Chapter 4, and when I say beginning, there's a lot of chit chat and story that's just like, oh, this faction within this faction and that faction within that faction. And we were getting this at the end of Chapter 3 with like Edmund betraying, and like we kept getting introduced to like new generals. And just like generals of generals, and like it'd be like, oh, I am this general, and we didn't even get like it wasn't like a cool cutscene or action where it's like, I am the Lion General of the Golden Empire or whatever. It was just like, I'm Graf, let's fight. And I'm kind of like, do we need a boss for every level? Like, do we, Shining Force? Is this something we have to have, like a named boss? And we had like 6 of these in a row. And then, hilariously, the first battle in Chapter 4, it's just like Force Commander as like the leader that we have to kill. So anyway, okay. I don't know, man. It's just kind of like, ugh, we're doing this again, huh? Because for me, again, it's like the worst part of the tactics games for the PlayStation that underscore soft, like Final Fantasy Tactics and Tactics Ogre. Ogre Tactics? I think it's Tactics Ogre. It's like all the political, it's like the story, because it's just like political. At least Tactics Ogre had like an interesting kind of like, I don't know. At least they were fun to play. This game is also fun to play. It's Shining Force, so nothing to complain about. But We start off and we're in the headquarters, right? So I don't know if I mentioned this before, but we always have like these headquarters in every town where we can hang out and like talk to all our companions about random bullshit. This is like every Shining Force game that's like a tactics-based game. And then we can also like switch out items or move people in and out of the force, the active force, because we only get like 12 people. But Masquin is like super concerned because we have not yet returned. And then Grace starts discussing all the issues with the Republic. Ugh. So there's like monsters coming in from up north. There's food shortages. There's a bad harvest. There's like, what the fuck is his name? There's like these guys from like Belor. There's Espina. There's like Fafard's the guy. There's Fagard. There's Stowich. Like, and we're just getting like it's like lore dump. It's just like, here's more names of towns, motherfuckers. And we have not, I feel like, besides the very beginning of the game when they were just dumping like information on us, I like had forgotten that was the case. Because up after that point, it's like, oh, hey, we got to go to this town because of this specific thing. Now it's like, hey, here's a whole bunch of issues that are going on in this town and stuff. And instead of having it be like a natural thing, it's like, hey, you need to know all this stuff because it's relevant to the story. And it's more annoying than anything else because it's like, okay, who, what? Because then it gets brought up later and it's like, okay, so Grace like brings up a couple things and like relates them to individuals or like regions within these, and then shortly thereafter we go to Comrade and Dantardus as they're talking to King Baratran and like some of his counselors, and they just start they reference essentially like they're having the same conversation, stuff that Grace was talking about, somewhat without like further explanation. And I was like, oh shit, I should have paid more attention to like all the shit that's going on. I forgot this is like all these strategy games around this era, like and Fire Emblem was like this too. The little bit I haven't engaged with that, where it's like there's so much like political maneuvering that is just like, oh, this is so boring. I hate it. I hated Game of Thrones so much. It's so bad. Anyway, so Khan does us a favor and brings up like some other issues. He's like, oh, I'm not concerned about any of that stupid bullshit. I'm more concerned about other things. And someone finally has to be like, come on, man, just tell us what you're fucking bothered by, so we don't have to like press you on it. And he starts talking about how like since the destruction of the statue, which at some points gets called the wall, I think, unless they're referring to a separate wall, there's been an increase in like darkness in the land, and that's like what's driving the monsters. And it's also, it gets hinted at by a few different people that like we probably could not have killed that vandal, even with the Orb of El-Besem, without if the statue had been destroyed at that point, because it was really like holding back the power of the Vandals to like do things, to do like their evil bullshit. And so when it was destroyed, all its evil power increased, and that's definitely accounting for some of the craziness that's going on, specifically the beasts and other things. And then everyone's kind of concerned about that, and they even talk about like, well, we're much stronger now, and Khan's like, doesn't matter, we're all fucked. Anyway, so this is the part where we head over to Synbios and Dantardus talking to the leaders, and we meet Fafard, so we meet another fucking general, and then I think his name's Thomas is back. He's kind of like an elf-looking dude. I haven't seen him since the beginning of the game, and this game does another funny thing where sometimes it will tell me what someone's name is, but it's usually the very first time they're introduced. And again, it's not like in a cutscene. It's just like there's text, and above the text will be their name, and then it like never comes up again. So now it's like, I don't remember who this guy's name is. And I was waiting for them to reference him by name, and they never did. So it's just one of the guys from the beginning of the game. He's here. And they're talking about the current situation. So they kind of reiterate some of the stuff that Grace was talking about. And this is where we learn, and you know, like specifically that the Bear Soul army showed up, and they're like, we had a bad harvest, we need resources from the capital, that's the point of the Republic, so give them to us. And if you don't give them to us, we're going to do some stuff. And they're like, are they really threatening the capital with like, we need resources or we're going to use force, instead of just like coming up and being like, hey, we need some resources, our people are struggling. And then we talked later on, if we talked to like townspeople around, we find out that they're kind of assholes and they're like stealing stuff from the citizenry anyway, and not really being good members of like what the Republic is supposed to stand for, which is, again, it's one of these like dark things where it's like, well, no one's good, no one does anything for anybody, which is like kind of realistic, but it's also like, man, I live in reality. I understand what America is doing to like most of the world and to its own people. Like, I don't need to like play some fantasy fucking game with like monsters from like 1,000-year empire 1,000 years ago or whatever, and then have like current day politics. be brought up. Or it's not current day politics. It's not that bad, but it's just kind of like, okay, I get it. Like governments are hard to run and they're bad and some people are corrupt and yada 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 yada. Got it. Okay, no one's really a true good guy. Fair. Anyway, so Barrisel has sent, and then we get like a soldier runs in and he's like, oh help! Barrisel has sent like a force down to Stowich, which is where we keep all our stuff, and it's also the headquarters of like the railways. So like we need to take care of it because otherwise we're going to be in a lot of trouble. And they're like, oh, I don't know if we can go fight him. And I don't we're like Barrisel's like breaking into like the capital, and he's gotten through like the first gate, and like we got to take care of that. And then there's like this other place that I write it down. Oh yeah, Flagguard. So there's Flagguard, and we're supposed to go take care of that and help them out as Synbios as the Shining Force. But this is like a much bigger deal, and so we offer to go, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know, you should be going to Flagguard." And then people are like, "No, we gotta take care of Stowich. Like, there's no possible way we can like survive without that. So someone's got to go. So might as well be Comrade, or sorry, Synbios." So like, all right, let's go. And then Fafhard, the translation or localization or whatever is not super great. So I got confused because at some point he's like says something, and then the Thomas guy is like, he says something back, and they both seem like very neutral comments. And then Fafhard's like, I have misspoken, I apologize. And I'm like, bro, all you said was, hey, we can't let this guy just like meander about. Oh no, okay. He says something about like, we just got to leave Barrisel alone. That's what it was. He's like, oh, don't worry about him. Just ignore him for now. And then we hear about the Stowich thing. And then Thomas is like, see, we got to go take care of it. You want to just do nothing? He's like, yeah, I guess you're right. We got to do something about it. I guess it makes more sense when I'm thinking about it. Anyway. So, okay, cool. So everyone agrees that Synbios and the Shining Force are going to go take care of this thing in the south. It's storage. And so as we head out, and then we run into Braff. Yeah, that's his name, Braff. And he's some guy with like a portrait, so he's going to be important, I guess. And he's like, oh, you're Synbios. I've heard about your stuff. You're very famous, and everyone's like really appreciative of all the hard work you're doing. And then Dan Tardis is like, ooh, well, color me pink in the face. I am proud to serve Synbios and his mighty force. And then Braff's like, I hope someday people will say nice things about me too. And then we're like very complimentary, and he's like, thank you so much. And then he tells us he's Fafhard's son. So not only do we meet this brand new general that we've never heard of before this point, we also meet his son. And then people keep referencing like Conrad, who's my father, and yet I guess he's not here or he's somewhere, and we haven't really met him either. But anyway, not important at this juncture. So we're like, cool. Well, all right, man. See you later. And then we head out, and there's like this big bridge leading from the castle into the town. And when we're there, Elder, and I called her something else in the like, sure, no, did I call her something else? Anyway, Eldar, the bird lady, and her brother Zero, who just joined the force and was with Midian, they show up and they're like, hey, Khan's got like a really bad premonition, which we were just there for that. And he's concerned about Midian's forces, and then they're fighting the Vandals, the Bolzome, and the whole thing with like the statue. So we get like another kind of reiteration of like this thing we just read just like a couple minutes ago. But the important thing is that Khan is gave Zero the orb, and we need to go warn Midian and also give Midian the orb so that he can fight the forces of darkness. And is that okay? And somebody says yes. And then Zero's like, hooray! So no two birdmen for me. Zero goes off to join Midian's Shining Force as well. And then Eldar is like, I'll go tell everyone we're getting ready to leave. And so then I go around the town and steal like the mithril that's lying around. We still have no way to use it, but I'm sure it'll come up eventually. And upgrade our equipment a little bit. We also meet this gladiator. Gladiators are like the dwarfs with the axes, named Horst. And he's like, you seem strong. I want to join your force. Do you have room? And we're like, yes. And he's like, I will join then. And then I looked at his stats versus Obrick, because right now I have over 12 guys. And I'm like, I'm going to keep Obright for now. And Horst can just sit in the headquarters and do nothing for the rest of the game. It is this time once again. And then I don't like this Justin character either, but I don't have anyone else to replace him with, because it's like, well, he has long range, so that is nice. But as Hayward, my Mother Archer, his range is like increased after his like promotion or his like weapons, and this guy still has like the short long range, which is only like 2 squares away, while Hayward can hit anything from like 2 to 3 squares away. So he is like fantastic. He's so good. Anyway, so once we take care of that, it's like, awesome, let's go. So we head out, And immediately we see Barasol's forces, and he sees us, and this is the Force Commander guy, and he's like, oh no, go Scout Troop, go raid that fucking place. And we're like, and then Maskwood's like, oh no, we gotta stop him. Even if we can't stop the Scouts, we gotta stop the main force from getting there and help the people of storage. So we're like, yes. So we start fighting, and we kill our way through everything, and then just by complete happenstance, because I'm using a guide to find all this fucking mithril, because sometimes it's literally hidden in like the floor on the corner of some random room, and there's no indication at all that it exists there. So I'm like, hell no, I'm not playing that fucking game, Shining Force. You've taught me a valuable lesson about searching random bullshit, so now I will use a guide to do that. And I fly Eldar up on top of like this mountain in the middle of this combat map just to like keep her out of the way, because I'm trying to get everybody up to like level 2, 3, and she's level 2 already. And at that juncture, she just finds this item. And I was like, oh, bad guide. You missed this super awesome arrow, bow and arrow, that I'm going to give Hayward later. But, oh well, what can you do? So that was nice. It was a nice surprise. I was like, oh shit, there's something up here. And it literally just like, she lands there and then finds it. I was like, oh, that's cool. Fun. This game has so many little secrets. I got to like search the whole fucking map to figure all this stuff out. Or not. Or just like, whatever, fuck it. Anyway. So once we kill the Force Commander and like the scouting troop and everybody, and we're like, all right, cool, we saved storage. They got a little roughed up there, but we got there in time to stop the main force from fucking that town over. Then we look back, and the west gate of Aspenia, the capital, closes. And we're like, oh no, they closed the gate. What are we supposed to do? We can't go to Falgard now, which is our original thing to do. And like, why would they close it on us unless they had some like very nefarious things they wanted to do over there? We got to figure out a way to do it. And then Dantaris is like, well, for now, let's just go rest. So we headed to storage and rest. And get some, upgrade our weapons a little bit, get some more mithril. It's like lying everywhere at this point. I'm finding so much of this shit. And then we find Pen. Who's Pen? Pen's a penguin. Yep. So remember that egg we found and that chicken we stole from that train? And we combined the two in our inventory and created Pen. And Pen is like this penguin. He's like half in an egg, half out. And then I looked at his stats and saw that he's level 1 and that his attack is like 1/4 like everyone else's. I was like, all right, Pen, welcome to headquarters. You will never leave. Oh, man. Heading out the backside of storage, we run into, dun dun dun, another battalion of Baracels. And they're there to inform us that Fafhard has betrayed Aspenia and that he's attacking Falgard. Oh no! Oh no, betrayal. I did not see that coming at all with his like weird comments and strange behaviors. We'll see what happens with the sun. But, you know, it's pretty straightforward. We're in this like little deserty area. Oh yeah, the commander of this like battalion, who's like a nameless commander, states that we have betrayed. We're the traitors. Bertrand and Conrad, Sinbios' father, are the true betrayers of the Republic because there was a famine and they gave aid to those people who needed it. How dare they? God damn. How dare they? Fuck them. You're the betrayers. All right, brother, calm down. You're kind of being an asshole right now. Jesus. Anyway, kick the shit out of them. And then we get told again that we're the worst, that we're the blame for all the things. I feel nothing but spite for this asshole for slowing me down while I go to try to protect my father in Falgard. Whatever, he's a stupid asshole. Anyway, before we head into the cavern, which is going to take us through like the lava pits, because why not, to the other side so we can get to Falgard because they blocked us off, we reflect on how, you know, that guy was wrong, but, you know, in his own way, he was keeping the spirit of the Republic alive, the spirit of not helping people who are dying from a famine. Fuck that guy. I absolutely disagree with their sentiments. The guy was a total asshole, at least in the translation. I don't know if the translation was just poor. And so he had, like, better excuses for his behavior, but, I mean, come on. Okay. So anyway, right before we head into the cavern, guess who shows up? Ratchet! You remember Ratchet, right? I didn't. I was like, who the fuck is this guy? And then he rolls up, and it's like, oh, it's that goblin from the Vandal place who built like his like Steam tech. He's like that guy in Shining Force 1, only I have no interest in using him. It even says like, oh, my contraption doesn't work right all the time, and so I need somebody strong to help me out. And I was like, cool, sounds good, bro. You go straight to the headquarters to never leave ever again. That's exactly how I felt about that. So he can join Pinguino to never be used and never be thought of ever again. Good stuff. All right. Oh, he also mentions that there's no monsters in this area because we killed them all. And I'm like, yeah, I guess we did. We have killed like 3 monsters, so that's good for us. All right, into the cave. It's full of lava. Masquin and Grace are not a big fan because it stinks, because lava. They're also, I don't know if I mentioned this before, people keep telling us, oh, we got to be careful going through that cave. There's a dragon over there. Ooh, dragon. Dragon. I'm unconcerned about it completely. There are some hydras here, which are a much bigger concern, and rightfully so. And some wyvern pop up, and we fight the more Cerebuses, which are easy, but they paralyze guys. And the paralysis isn't like always on, so it's kind of annoying, to be completely honest. All right. Anyway, so Dentardus and I mentioned like, hey, you guys gotta nut it up, because we're gonna head through this cavern and we gotta get through quick so we can stop Fafhard from attacking Falgard. It's a lot of F names. I don't understand. So yeah, let's do it. So we head through, and so eventually the dragon shows up. Oh no, it's a baby dragon. Aw, and it does less damage than virtually everything else in this cavern. So I leave it the fuck alone. I just completely ignore it. I'm like, whatever. Symbiosis just needs to get to the other side of this cavern. We're just gonna move and make that happen. I think I'm supposed to leave him alone because then he'll like help Midian's thing. I think I read something about that. I wasn't really using the guide while playing this part because it was pretty straightforward, but yeah, I think so. Anyway, so once we get through the cavern, we're like, oh good, they haven't like broken into Falgard yet. We made it just in time. And then Fafhard's army's like, hey look, it's Symbios, that asshole. They must have beat up what's this guy's name? Balros's battalion that was over there. And they're like, hey boss, look over here. And then Fafhard's there, and he's like, oh, what? Stop the siege. We will go and fight Symbios' army. Good. I'm glad they weren't stopped before, because I want to kill them. And I was like, okay. Like, you became like a real big asshole, like real fucking fast. Like, from like, we have to stop them for the good of the Republic, to like, I want to defeat him because I'm an asshole. Like, okay. So yeah, and then at this point, Masquin and Grace, maybe just Masquin, is like, we have to protect our home. I'm like, oh, you're from here too? Nice. Because Falgard's where Connor's from, which means that's where Symbios is from, because Conrad is his father. All right, cool. So off to battle with Fafhard, who's become a real asshole, so I feel nothing but pleasure in taking care of this problem. So we go ahead and kick the shit out of Fafhard's troops. Yep. Treat him real bad. after he gets knocked down, he begs for his execution. But we're like, nah. You're just trying to take care of your people. We get it. And yet it's bad intel, like you thought all this spurious shit was going down, but it really wasn't. So we encourage him to go ahead and talk to Lord Conrad, Symbios' dad, and, kind of hash things out, see what's going on. So he's like, yeah, you know what? You're right. That sounds like a great idea. At that point, though, Fiale, one of the Balsame high priests, he shows up. He's a real asshole. And he kills him. He's like, gotcha. No being forgiven for you, asshole. And then Philel tells us that he's going to go see Lord Conrad right now and go ahead and heads into Falgard. As Fafhard dies, he says, I knew it. I knew Lord Conrad was a betrayer. I knew it. And Masquin says, nah, come on. You're going to trust that asshole? Come on, he's a fucking liar. And then Fafhard's like, yeah, okay, you're probably right. What the fuck? This guy's all over the place. Oh man. So now he's like, I believe you again. He then talks about saving the Republic and how we have to be the Force and do all this stuff. And one more thing before he dies, he wants us to make sure that Lord Conrad, Symbios' father, is not a betrayer. And if he is, he must be executed. So we're like, okay, sounds good. Heading into Falgard, we find it completely empty, except for Frank. Frank's a Wolfman, and the Wolfman is so good in other games. And in this game, he's kind of shit. So we, after we get him by pushing his model literally into the HQ, we leave him in that HQ. Well, that's not all true. I tried using him. I really did. but he just did not want to be good. I don't know what to say. Like, as soon as I got somebody, as soon as somebody else rolled around, like I switched out Albright, and I kind of regretted it, but at some point I was like, it takes so much work, and I'm so lazy to like switch these characters back out that I'm just going to roll with it and see if maybe he gets slightly better, and he never did, and eventually he got replaced. But for now, he's with the team. But we find out by heading into the church, where like a lot of people are hiding, that the Balsame sect people like pushed all the way into the castle, and then they sealed it up real good. But talking to the priest of the church, we find out that he's an old friend of Lord Conrad, and he trusts us. And that he doesn't know exactly, but he knows that Lord Conrad at some point mentioned that there's a trick to opening the gates, and that has something to do with like the Republic emblems that are all over town that we have never seen before at any Republic town. But here they are now. They're these like green leafy looking things. And so we just walk up to each one and inspect them, and the second one I inspect, it opens up a secret passage. Awesome. When we get in there, there's no cultists, but we do see Conrad sitting alone. So Sinbias is encouraged by his friends, Dantardus, Masquin, and Grace, to go kind of say, "What up, Dad? What's going on? How are we doing?" And so as we approach, Lord Conrad, he warns us. He's like, "Hey, it's a trap. Don't come any closer." And we're like, "No, we're going to come closer." So we get a little closer, and then Fial shows up. And he talks some old bullshit about some promised land and some other nonsense and vandals something. He doesn't say vandals, but it's all tied into that, right? So he talks some smack about parental love. And, he just continues to be a straight-up asshole. So whatever, fuck that guy. We start a fight. We rush up to him. We kill him. We get a key. That key apparently is used in scenario 2 or 3. I think it's 2. For reasons we'll get to in a minute, but he doesn't seem that like Fial seems like, I dropped the key. Fuck it, whatever, not that important. Okay. And then as we're about to like kill him and kill his forces, he's like, "All right, adios." So he kills Lord Conrad and nopes out, and it's like, fuck you, man. So we clean up the rest of his fucking crew, and Conrad in his like death throes is like, "You must go to the tower to Palsis. You must find him. You must help him." And then we get like the super sad death scene. The girls are crying and all this stuff. And we get like people in like the headquarters talking about how sad it is and how we feel bad for Symbios and hope we can be okay, and that we gotta go to this tower and make sure everything's gonna be okay. We gotta find Palsis so that we can continue our fight against the Balsame sect and take out Fial once and for all. And then we get like we see Symbios is just like kneeling in front of like a casket where his dad was sitting before, and he's all satapotamus. And then Grace and Masquin and Dantaris are standing back, and they're like, "Hey, we gotta get going. Should we should we get him? Should we just let him mourn some more?" It's like, let him mourn some more. God damn, dude. And eventually we stand up and we're like, "All right, fellas, let's go." And we're like, "All right." So we all head out, and that ends chapter 4. Chapter 5 begins right afterwards. So at some point, Zero showed up, and he's all sad about Conrad's death as well. This is back in chapter 4. But now there's some more chit-chat, and Elder, who for some reason has the key to something, gives it to Zero and is like, "Hey, go back to..." Well, once again, we do like a trade-off. We get the Orb of Elbisem back to Khan, and then we give Zero the key because it might be useful, maybe? Probably scenario 2 stuff going on. And so that he can take it over to to scenario 2 guy. God, what's his fucking name? Midian. And then we chit-chat. Khan and Zero talk a little bit about how they use the El Besem orb to destroy some barrier to fight something. And then like Zero's like, "I want to stay and I want to help." And his older sister's like, "Nah, man, you're helping bridge the powers that be between us and the Empire, and you're doing a great job, and you got to keep it up." And then Albright at this point mentions the Lookover Tower, and how it's important for us to get up there and check it out. And then Khan asks him about the Lookover Tower, stating that he's heard about it and heard there's a large ruins there. We learn that Duke Palsis has resigned his position within the Republic so that he could move there and do something. I don't know if we ever get like a firm understanding of that. Even when we go to the tower, like, why were you just hanging out here? But whatever. And Eldar mentions that she's been there many times and such, so good stuff. We then head out, and on the plains to Lookover Tower, we just kill a bunch of monsters. No foul. And then we get there, and everyone's telling us about how these like masked monks headed to the tower, and so we go ahead and enter the tower as well. It's a fun little battle. It's like very 3D in that it's got X and Y stuff going on, and we kind of circle around this tower to get up. And there's like a couple different pathways, and I just sent Elder over at some point to just like fuck around with some dudes for a while, and kept like killing some dudes and then flying off and using like a healing drop and then coming back and messing with them. We get like an unlimited stream of monks from one of the sections here, and that shit's always annoying, but it is what it is. It's not the worst because they only come like 1 or 2 at a time, and so at one point I was like just stacked some guys there and just like leveled up by kicking the shit out of them. And as the battle progresses, Fowl makes a lot of like what is it called? A lot of grand gestures about putting our soul in a jar, like fucking us over, this and that. At some point, Palsis like rolls out of the tower. He's like, "Oh hey, what's up, guys? What's going on? You must come and save me." And Fowl's like, "I'm gonna get you," and they just stand there and don't move. Okay. And the fact that Palsis is like, "Oh, I know you. You're the Balsame high priest set guy." Blah blah blah. And Fowl's like, "Oh, freaking me out." And then Palsis also mentions that Conrad tasked him that if anything happened to Lord Conrad, that he was supposed to mentor and raise Sembias to be the greatest general of all Aspia. So we go and we beat the shit out of Fowl. He's really not that hard. He's a mage, so he casts some of that bullshit, like multi-attack magic stuff these games love. But at this point, we're getting like Spark 2 and Spark 3 as well, so we're like massacring their forces. They cost so much, though. But it's good stuff. He's dead. And then as we kill him, Palsis is like, "Hurry up and finish him off!" And Dantardus is like, "Nani desu ka? But of honor, he's already defeated. Why would we attack him now?" And then the reason why is because Basanda, my favorite MILF in this game, is she comes and rescues Falil and takes him off. And we can't do anything about it because we fought our way up this tower and we can't fight her now. And having fought her later, we could have easily defeated her also at this point. But whatever. So after she leaves, we head inside. Palsis wants us to like look around, and so we look at like every cardinal direction, and he gives us like geography lessons of like, "Oh, there's a river over there. Look at that river. Look, it's so big. And that river is where we built a bridge so that we could unite the empire. And then over there, oh, those mountains are fun. I went hiking there once in the 60s and like smoked some really crazy weed and stuff. Like, it's like some real asinine shit. But we got to go look at all of them. And then we come back to the middle and we chat with him, and he's like, "Oh, you done looking around?" And I was like, I was done looking around before I even started. And then he starts filling us in. He says that the 3 of them, Bertrand, Palsis, and Conrad, were like, we need to have like a trifecta or a trinity or whatever to rise Aspia up. And if one of us should fall, we need to be replaced by someone else. So we all need to find like a crony or like a son or somebody who can like take our place so we can continue this. And it was a big secret. So they kept it from like the rest of the Republic. So it's our job to step into Lord Conrad's place as his son, obviously. And then at some point, Grace mentions the Vandals. And Dantardus is like, "Oh yeah, something, the 1,000-year kingdom." It's like, all right, cool. We're back to Holy the Shining Arc again. We're finally getting there. I think Scenario 3 is really going to dive into this. Scenario 2 might too. I've never played either of those because they were never translated in English, but now they are. So we're going to get to it when we beat this. So then Palsis nods and it's like, yes, the 1,000-year war, the Vandals, this is all related, something dark powers. And there's a big crystal in the middle of the tower, and he's like, "Look, behold, this is what I've been doing, watching this crystal as it gets darker and darker because the darkness in the world is growing stronger and more monsters and stuff." And I'm like, I like glance out the tower and I'm like, I could have easily told you that just by like living in life, not sitting here in a tower hiding away looking at a fucking crystal, you asshole. Oh man. Anyway, so then Palsis talks about how we can't attack Balsame directly because we're not strong enough or something. And then Masquin mentions the Walkyrie. And the Walkyrie is some sort of flying weapon that was used in ancient times by the Vandals. And then we get a whole conversation about that and how the Balsame sect infiltrated both the Empire and the Republic. And that they had like, excuse me, they were like whispering dark things into people's ears. And that the whole point was to cause terror, and that terror is what creates like the darkness that the crystal's tracking. And if they get enough darkness points into their like crystal bullshit, then that'll resurrect Balsame because he gets resurrected by like terrifying the populace. So the best way to deal with that is to give people hope, to unite the Imperial Empire and the Republic, and to stop all the infighting. They talk about the infighting a lot. All right. So then we learned about Tristis. Tristis is the Lord of Mallory. It's kind of the north of where we're at now. It's part of like the Aspia Republic, and it's Lord Tristis is Synbios's brother-in-law because his wife Margaret is Synbios's older sister. Nice. She soon becomes my favorite MILF in this game. So that's the next step. Next step is to head to Mallory and see what's going on there and see if we can utilize him to like reunite the Republic and everyone can be happy and super great. At that point, Mesquin mentions that there is another ancient wonder, and Palsis mentions that there's like a big Titan thingy that was also a weapon used by the Vandals at some point. But we're not going to worry about that for now, even though you like glance at the title of this scenario 1 and it's like the Titan of Aspia. I think we should be more concerned about this than we actually are. Oh well. So we head to Mallory to meet up with Tristis. We head out on this like great wall that connects the tower to like this other place, and on the tower we run into Murasame, and he's like, watch out, there's a trap set by the Balsame sect. And I can just look at the map and see all these guys like trying to pretend to hide like the ramparts of this wall. But yeah, whatever, thanks man. But there's like a more devious trap. He like throws a bomb or something at like this section and it blows up, and then a golem, like a clay golem, pops out and starts throwing rocks down this area. And it's just like that part of the game in Shining Force 1 where the laser machine like shot lasers, and I'm like, fuck you, game. It's not as bad because it's much shorter. Like I was able to clear it, and he doesn't always throw rocks on his turn, which is also nice. So it makes it like 1,000 times easier. He then joins up as like an NPC character who just goes around and steals kills from the guys I need to level up. So kind of an asshole move, gonna say. But we beat the shit out of all these this trap business and the golem and all that stuff. And then he tells us more. He says he was investigating the cult and that he was learning all this stuff, but at some point he got captured and they tortured him with magic and hookers and beer and stuff. And so he gave up like the ghost. So that Dantaris is like, oh, that's why they were always one step ahead, because you told them everything. And I'm like, I've never met this person before. How the fuck would this dude know all my plans before I know them? Like, he was sent by Palsis to do like this other thing. Like, what plans could he have possibly given away? Like, I've never met this person before. So again, there's some like, I feel like if I played this in the original Japanese, it would be slightly better. And I don't know, we'll see, because I don't know if the guy like retranslated this one or he just like, here you go, the guy who translated the second and third ones. I'm assuming he did not, because that's like a lot of extra work that's unnecessary because the game was translated. But if we're getting some of the same kind of like sketchy translation stuff, it might be this guy. I appreciate him for making it in English so I can enjoy most of the game. So no hate, but I would almost blame like the original Japanese as being like the real problem, because some of this stuff is just like just doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, okay. Anyway, then Murasame talks more about the Walkyrie or the Walkyrie or however it is, and then he mentions the Titan again and says that they're still digging it up. They dig it up pretty quick though. We never see this digging up process, but we do have to deal with the Titan later, because we have to stop it or it's going to cause so much damage and cause all these problems and stuff. So at that point we're cleared through the wall, and we see this field of like emptiness right before Mallory, and Murasame correctly identifies it like, hey, they probably set a trap here for us. And we're like, yep, they probably did. So he's like, I'm gonna go sneak over there and check out the castle and see what's going on with Tristis, and then come meet me when you're done. And then he pieces out. We're like, cool. Right next to us, though, before we start this battle, is Vagabond. Yes, they moved. They somehow got all the way over here, so we're going to go hang out with them. And we chit-chat with them, nothing new. We get a few more weapons. We save, resurrect guys that died, stock up on some nice stuff. And then we head to Mallory. And the trap is these things called stingworms. Stingworms poison, and they do a lot of damage, to be completely honest. So I'm not a huge fan. But then the biggest thing is that they got this like mutant queen, and she's like a giant, like as big as a dragon. And she's like any other boss. You just like roll up and surround them and beat the shit out of them with your guys. You just kind of time it correctly so that it's like after she attacks, it's like now you move. So every one of your characters gets a chance to like beat the shit out of him. So, you know, the boss gets like one attack essentially, and that's it. The more annoying part is that as you're going along, there's like these stingworms that pop up, and then when you kill them, they pop up again. So you got to kind of just like bum rush the boss, so you don't have to deal with that bullshit so much. But fun. Oh man, we do level up a bit because they give pretty good experience points, and some of our guys are lower levels, so we just kind of like hang out and kick the shit out of them for a while. Afterwards, Palsis is really concerned that we haven't heard anything from Murasama, so we got to be prepared for like more traps, of course, more traps and more shenanigans. And we're like, all right, sounds good. And with that, we roll into Mallory, and that wraps up Chapter 5. Chapter 6 begins with us in the headquarters, as they tend to do, and we're all talking about the worms, fucking worms, and how the queen was so large, and then somebody mentions that they usually live in like tropical climates far to the south, and that someone really spent a lot of effort bringing them up here, and also that there appears to be some like evil dark magic that was injected into the queen so that she would be so big and vicious and whatnot. So again, the Balsame sect is a bunch of assholes and stuff, but they got impressive magic if they're able to drag these worms all the way up here and then take care of it. Talk then kind of turns away from there, and people start chit-chatting about how Tristis is like making us wait, which is very unusual because he's the brother-in-law of Sinbios, and how we're getting a lot of like shady talk from like the guards, and like kind of at some point Palsis is like, well, we should probably try to force our way in to see Tristis, or we should get the fuck out of here because this is like not really happening very well for us, and there's like other things we could be doing besides just sitting here being like prisoners inside this town. Waiting for this thing to go down. All right, so off we go. And the funny thing, another part of the translation issue here is that Palsis says something about like, let's try to leave, and we're like, okay. And then the only place we can go is into the castle. So I don't know what let's see if we can leave business is all about. So because we literally just walk up to the castle and talk to our guy, and it's like, hey, we demand to see Tristis right now. And right then this general, Wilmer, who's like the general of the Mallory forces, comes out and he's like, oh yeah, come with me. And I'm like, oh, this mother fucking pink-haired asshole. I've never seen him before, but I know he's a bad guy just by looking at his like his fucking pink-haired assholery face in his little that's like above his like speaking box. Some other shady stuff going on in this town is that the weapons shop is closed, but they do have blacksmiths, so we get some mithril gear. And then there's like a bird man who's a part of like the army, and he's gone missing, named Finding. And we find out more about that. And also Tristis hasn't been seen in a long time. And then we also learn before we head in for this other trap that all the people in town are talking about there's an imperial force that's led by Erwin, who's like the oldest son of the empire, I think, and they're heading up. They're gonna attack Mallory, and everyone's preparing to get out of there because they're like attacking Espia right now, and they're probably gonna win because they got this huge force or whatever. Okay. So once we get inside, Wilmer is like chit chat. Oh, come into this room, and then you get in that room and he locks us in the room. And we're like, fuck that guy. And then Murasama shows up and he's like, hey fellas, what's up? Sorry, I got trapped here doing nothing. Awesome, right? Oh my goodness. So he reveals that Tristis and his son Ag-Ernon are prisoners. And this part is like, some of the writing again or translation or whatever is bad, because I got super confused, because at first the way they're talking, it seems like Ag-Ernon is here, but then no, he's in Espia and he was captured, but not by Wilmer, by Braff. Braff is the son of Fafhard from before. And then we get into like a whole conversation about Braff and his lineage, because Palsis is like, oh, I see he's finally taken after his mother's legacy. And I'm like, Nani deska? And then Murasama's like, let me tell you a tale. Once upon a time, Fafhard met a woman and fell in love, but she was a member of the Balsame sect. And they had a baby together, and then she abandoned him, and he was so heartbroken he never married again. And that son is Braff. And then that woman is, dun dun dun, my favorite MILF from this game at this point, Basanda. Aww. She used to be such a sweet little girl, or sweet young woman, and having a kid and getting married and stuff. But then evil took over, and someone also talks about how she came from like that's so ridiculous. She was born and raised in the town of Sorrow, like literal sorrow. Get the fuck out of here. Which was a stronghold for the Balsame sect. So she had like no chance but to become a high priest and be evil and stuff. Damn. Anyway, Braff is why. So Braff is the reason why Ag-Ernon. So Ag-Ernon was picked up because he was an Espia, and he was like kidnapped essentially and held hostage out there by Braff. And so then Wilmer, who wanted to protect the prince, or the son of his master, Tristis, locked them up because he knew if Tristis found out about Algernon, then he would like immediately go attack the city of Aspia, and then they would kill Algernon. So it was like kind of good that all happened. Yeah. So we're gonna have to take care of that in a little bit. But to do that, we have to escape out the window. So Murasama's like, hey, they're gonna Wilmer's gonna use his forces to fight you. So you got to just hold on tight until I can get the rest of the Shining Force, and we can go beat the shit out of that guy. So we're like, all right, sounds good. So Dantaris and Symbiote, the two best characters I have, are easily dispatch of all the forces that are laid against them, essentially. Like I possibly could have taken the whole thing, like, because there's two sets of 3 characters in each side of you, and then on the other side of the map is like the rest of the force, and it's not that big. But anyway, we just like run at the first force, kill them, run at the second one, kill all them, and then we just like hang tight. And it takes a while, but eventually the rest of the force shows up, and then we just massacre Wilhelm's like rest of his guys. But because these guys are like one-shotting and killing dudes that are like higher level, to such a point where Symbiote and Dantaris both gain like 3 levels. So now they're even more ridiculously overpowered. Good for them. And then at some point, Palsis is like, hey, just go to the middle and hang tight before the other force arrives. And we're like, sure. And I think I actually have to do that for the force to show up, because it took a long time for them to like roll in. And eventually I'm like, well, maybe I'll just go fight this other force, and maybe I can draw some guys out and kill them. And so as soon as I start moving to the middle, then it was like, aha, we have arrived. And I was like, oh, thank goodness you arrived. That's awesome. And then at that point, Murasama officially joins the force, and this is the point when Frank gets the boot, Das Boot. He gets the boot by the game. Like, I don't even, like, Frank was in my force, and then when Murasama shows up, you're only allowed to have 12 characters. So Frank got the boot by the game, and then after the battle, I just assumed Frank would still be in it, and I was like, yeah, whatever. And then I went to the next battle, and Murasama was there, and I'm like, well, Murasama's my new Frank, so Frank can go eat a dick. He's gone forever. Oh, man. So after we devastate his forces, Dantaris gets, like, really upset, and he's like, oh, no, Wilmer first is like, aha, I knew there was someone sneaking around here. It must have been you, Murasama. And Dantaris is like, hey, shut the fuck up. Why did you betray your lord? And then this is where he, like, reveals the sadness about Erwent and the Balsame force already taking over Aspia, and, like, all the other bullshit that's going on, and how he wanted to protect Algernon and stuff. And we're like, yeah, okay, that tracks. So we throw him some, like, good job, man. You stuck to your guns. You protected your Lord Prince or whatever. Palsis, like, straight up agrees with him. He's like, yeah, that was a good decision. And so after Wilmer dies, Palsis is like, let's go ahead and continue to not tell Tristis what's going on and just try to go take care of it ourselves and see what happens. We don't want him causing a big problem and doing all this stuff. We'll go rescue Algernon and go from there. So that should be good. So time to head back to Aspia. After all this the last 2 chapters and whatnot. But first we got to ransack this castle, get all the goodies. We head out. Braff's got a huge force of bitches who die. Like, I massacre them real good. But not yet. First we stand there and we're like, oh shit, there's a lot of guys here. Fun. We talk about his hot mom and how Fayal is the one who killed his father, Fafhard, not us. And he's like, really? I believe you. That's amazing. And he's like, my mother would be so angry. She would definitely kill Fayal if she found out about that. And we're like, yeah, you should tell her. And he's like, well, I will once I defeat you. And then Dantaris is like, well, if we didn't kill your father, why do you want to get revenge? And Braff's like, no, I want to test my skills as a general against Symbiote. And we're like, okie dokie. And then, like, it goes up, it's like back and forth, and then it's like back to like Dantaris, Palsis, Murasama, and Symbiote. And we're like, this motherfucker just wants to fight you to see who's better. And we're like, Lord Christ, give me strength. Like, he's not a bad kid, but still, we gotta like beat the shit out of him. And we're like, yeah, we do. And he's got at least like 24 guys, but they are weak as shit. And partially, I like run to one side of the field and just like hug the wall essentially all the way up, and just his like onesie twosie guys come to like fight me. I murder the shit out of them. So that's good. But it's just, I can't get over how the fight with Braff is literally like a dick measuring contest. Like, and he literally says, I'm going to measure myself against you, Symbiote, to see who is like the stronger force. And I'm like, bro, come on. Stop being such a dick. Anyway, like I said, we crush him. As he's laying there dying, he's telling us that Algernon, he was not the one who abducted him, that it was Prince Orent, and the Prince Orent is completely bought into like the Balsame thing, and that there's all this stuff. But that Algernon is still alive, so we can still save him. At that point, Basanda, the MILF, shows up to save him. She sends a dragon to pick him up, and then she leaves like the stone gem, and she challenges us to find the secret because we can't get into the Aspia because the Imperial Army like has their they like got it wrapped up, and Palsus is like, oh yeah, we have very good defenses, and I'm like, if we have such good defenses, how did these motherfuckers get in there? Whatever, they did, and now they control it. So I guess we got to find the secret way. Oh, there's a secret way, all right, through the catacombs. And Basanda's like, oh, use this stone and see if you can discover the way. And it's very obvious what the way is because there's like some guards who won't let us in, and there's a statue, and so we interact with the statue by using the stone key or whatever this thing is to unlock the catacombs. And once we get into the catacombs, there's one way to go, and when we go that way, we run into Basanda. And guess who she got? She got Spiel. You remember Spiel? We almost killed her. And there's a whole funny conversation, again, like poor writing, where Basanda is like, aha, you see the dark magics? You should have aligned yourself with dark magics. We can literally resurrect the dead. And in my head, I'm like, she wasn't dead. You literally saved her before she died and said, we're going to heal her and bring her back. And there's literally holy magic in this game that will heal people who have like 1 hit point left. Like, what? And like, there's priests who can like bring people back to the dead. Like, in what universe do I need to rely on like your power of dark magic to like save somebody that wasn't even dead? That's like, what? Like, get the fuck out of here. Spiel is still kind of like entrapped by the dark magic of confusion or something. I don't know. I get confused if she's being like controlled by Basanda or if she like is doing this of her own volition. I think she's being controlled, but then like conversation later on, if you save her, which I chose to because she comes up later, from my understanding, in scenario 3 according to the walkthrough that I'm using. So yeah, that's what we're gonna do. Okay, so after that ridiculous conversation, we fight some more, and I reset the battle at some point because I took all my guys to like go to one of these like ruins where the thieves are, but I forgot to bring the thief map, and so I was like, I'm not gonna walk them back all the way back through this like the ruins, like the little catacomb levels that you can find in some of these levels where you can get some nice items. I'm just gonna reset the battle and do it all over again because this battle has a lot of like shitty enemies that die in like 1 or 2 hits and give like no experience points. And then at the very end, you fight these like minotaurs, which are pretty tough, and they give pretty good experience, and a couple monks, and then obviously Spiel and Basanda give great experience points as well. But Spiel, we just use our first ninja, the one I got, the secret one I got in a while ago. I don't know if I mentioned getting him. Doesn't matter. Not important. Anyway, so there's 2 ninjas you can get. There's Murasama and there's another ninja, Hagsoth. And so Hagsoth has a sleep spell, so he just rolls up to Spiel and like puts her to sleep and then put her to sleep again and then put her to sleep again. But at that point, the battle was over. And then, so we fight. Oh, the other thing Basanda mentions is like the Titan's already destroying Aspia, and the Imperial forces already control everything, and that she's controlling the Titan using the negate staff that she has. And that's the way she can control it remotely. And so it's like, oh, we got to get that staff and destroy it. So then once we punch through and kill her and save Spiel, Murasama's like, I'm going to stop the Titan right now. And he goes to grab the staff and gets knocked back. And she's like, aha, suck it. You have to have the power of darkness to use this staff. So I didn't even do that to you. It's just the staff is so evil. Then you're not evil. So go fuck yourself. And then she does this like funny dance thing. Like her model does this like she's drunk, kind of moving around and twisting and stuff. And Don Tyrus is like, what are you doing, Basanda? And then she goes to the edge and she's like, ooh, and then she like throws herself to her death in like the catacombs water. It's like, okay. And then the staff goes with her and it like sinks very low. And then it's like, oh no, we lost the staff. And then Murasama is like, hold up, let me go look. And you're like, yep, that water's pretty fucking deep. I guess we're done. And then Palsus is like, plus we can't touch the staff. So what the fuck? Like, why did you just go over there and look? Like, it's like you're going to swim down there and get blasted back out, you dumb asshole. Whatever. But she does say that she gives us like another opening. Like she's like really helping out by, you know, aside from being kind of a crazy MILF. But she mentions that without the staff, the Titan would just meander about and like murder everybody. So he's going to fight the Republic and the Imperial forces. And then, you know, and then in my head, I'm like, thank you, I guess. Like, kind of helped. And Palsus is like, oh, she did us such a great favor, and we can use this information to strategize. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Anyway, so then Spiel, who's woken up now, is like, wait a second. So if the Balsame sect joined forces with Arendt and the Imperials, I don't trust them, but I also don't trust the Republic, because the Republic is my enemy, and I don't know what to do. And she has like a crisis of consciousness. So then we walk up and like, hey, you okay? And she's like, well, I definitely don't trust the Imperial anymore because I hate the Balsame sect, and they are aligned with them, so, and they're liars, and I don't know what else they lied about. And like, so you want to join the Republic? And she's like, no. I don't know what I'm going to do. And we're like, okay, well, good luck with that. So we leave. And we find some guards who are like, oh man, that Titan really fucked up Espia. We're all hiding down here. And then someone's like, or Palisys is like, what about the stone bridge? And they're like, oh yeah, the stone bridge is over there. And we're like, awesome, thanks. And we're like, what do you do with that stone bridge? And Palisys is like, I have an idea. We can use the Titan against the Imperial forces. And then, so we head over that way. And then we run into the Finding, who was the guy who was locked up. He was missing Birdman, and he's like, hey, what's up? And we're like, yo, what's up? And he's like, Tristus freed himself, and he knows about Wilmer, and now he's preparing an army to attack Aspia, to retake Aspia Castle. We're like, oh no, we can't do that because of bullshit, something his son, and yada, yada, yada. And he's like, I know, right? That's what I was trying to tell him. But, you got to go back. You got to go back and convince him that you guys can take care of it. He's not going to listen to anybody else because you're like his beloved brother-in-law, and your sister Margaret has a lot of sway because she's also a MILF, and you know, we got to make this happen. So we're like, okay, let's do it. Let's see if I missed anything. Oh, we also learned from him that the Titan's attacking anyone who gets close, and that the Titan existing is, he's like chill. He went to the moat. It's like, yeah, the Titan at some point just like walked over to the moat and like sat down and hasn't moved since. So he's like bathing or having like a spritz or something, whatever. But the important thing is that it's split the Imperial army in two, and that's good because now it's like, oh no, we can take care of it now because they're split up. Good for us. The last thing Finding mentions is that Tristus wants us to have a war council. So back to Mallory go, through the catacombs, all this stuff. We gotta like hoof it back, unfortunately. Once we get there, Margaret has this whole like rant about being worried about us, and she's scared because we're too impulsive and we like to take challenges. And then Dantaris tries to defend us. He's like, "Oh, your brother has become a grand general, he's one of the greatest generals ever, and he's really shined." And then Tristus is like, "That's enough. You're worrying my wife. You got to stop it." But I can't stop it because you're the best general we have left, and everyone else has either abandoned us or died. That's like fair. I think we are the last general. Now that you bring this up, damn. And then Palisys is like, "Everyone, shut up. I have a plan." And everyone's like, "Yes, plan." There's a large stone bridge right near the Titan, and anyone who walks by that, like Finding was telling us, gets destroyed by the Titan. So if we can trick the Imperial army to like come across the bridge to get us because of whatever reason we can come up with, the Titan will do most of the work for us. And then someone's like, "But what about the Titan?" And then Palisys is like, "Aha, there's a dam." And everyone's like, "Oh yeah, the dam." And he's like, "If we release the dam, the water should destroy the Titan." And everyone's like, "Oh, that's a great idea." So we're going to split into two. Finding's going to lead one party. Synbias is going to lead another battalion. Or they call them battalions, not parties. He's going to lead one battalion. Finding's going to lead the other battalion. Finding's going to go to the dam, and so he joins the force, and he's going to release the water, and we're going to like lure the troops across, and then they're going to get destroyed by the Titan, and the Titan's going to be destroyed by the water, and then all we'll have to do is fight Lord Errant, and everything will be great. So that's what we're going to do. Sounds like a good plan. But before we do that, there's like a secret dungeon called like the Trial of Heroes or something, so we're gonna go check that out first. All right, before we head off to the final battles, and again, it's a Shining Force game, so there's actually 3 separate battles. Technically, it's 2, with 2 different armies and 2 different locations. Well, the first battle is split between like the 2 battalions, one Finding that goes off to the dam, and Synbios, who's kind of holding the castle down and luring like the army into the Titan's grasp and whatnot. But before we do all that, there's like a little heroes trial, and so I go in there just to level up my guys to like, I want to get them up to like 15. I'm like cruising through this game for the most part, but the guide I'm using, which is on Shining Force Central, it's like the Jiu Seiyun guide or something. Anyway, it's fantastic. It doesn't have everything when it comes to like finding items and stuff in the maps, but other than that, it's great. I would highly recommend if you're playing through these games and you want like a little bit of oomph. Like it tells you where the synchronicity spots are, like the spots where like you got to do something here to get characters or actions later on in the other things. So good. Anyway, so we go through here, we get some like pretty good items. There's like a boss that has like 1,000 hit points, which is more than like it's like a secret boss, right? He's really not that tough. He has one of those spells that that can instantly kill, but he only used it like once, and the rest of the time he's just like fucking around. And there's like a couple mages and a dragon in there too, but they go down pretty fast. Anyway, so I run through that twice to get everybody up to level 15 and get the items, and then it's finally time. Okay, so as we push forward through the catacombs, we finally get to the point where Finding takes the B squad, which the only good person. I had to go. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention that in the town you can pick up a couple mercenaries, and the mercenaries are decent because they're like level 15, if I remember correctly, already. And so they're pretty good, especially when like I got like Ping, the Penguin, and like Ratchet, and some other assholes who I never use. They're just like barely functional, and so they get like really murked when they split off with you. So you either got to split up like your good units with your bad units, which I refuse to do, or you just got to roll with like the mercenary holding down the fort while Finding goes and like sexually assaults, as in just rapes the shit out of the boss at the dam. And he's able to do that through the magic of save scumming. But we'll get there in a sec. Like good vibes and save scumming. Anyway, so we split up. Finding takes the rejects off. I go pick up a missionary, and I guess if you don't get all the hidden characters, which I did because I used to guide, then you can pick up 3. So it's almost better just to like not get the secret characters. Except I used one of the secret characters like very efficiently, so which is Hagane the ninja. So I'm glad I did. But like Frank and Ping and Ratchet, and who's the last one? Oh yeah, that's all 3. That's all 4 of them. So those 3 I didn't use. I mean, I tried to use Frank as I mentioned, but he ended up being just a piece of shit. Okay, so they head off that way, and then we head off, and then we pop out of the catacombs, and Arwen's like, "Oh motherfuckers, I see you snuck in here. Too bad, you're gonna get destroyed. We have this thing wrapped down, and there's a Titan, so you can go fuck yourself." And then we find, and then Arganon, the nephew of Synbios, is like, hey, he's just like hanging by a fucking rope over like the water, and he's like, "Look, behold, I have your nephew. He's sitting there. He's still alive, but I'm gonna kill him." Like, the fuck, man. And then Arganon, who is the bravest one of this whole bunch, is like, "Uncle Synbios, go save yourself. Don't worry about me." Man, what a fucking baller. That guy's awesome. Anyway, Arwen's a real creep, and he like admits to like serving Buzame, and he gets more into it after the battle. So we start the fight. We beat the shit out of his forces. So we like roll up out of the catacombs onto like the secondary bridge, onto like the main bridge, and we're right in the middle of the bridge. And then he has forces coming from both sides. So I just chose the side of the castle, and I just rushed that side and killed all those guys. And then he sent like a meager amount of forces. Like I didn't lose a single guy in this battle. Like it was pretty easy. Over to like harass us from the rear, but I just like get all my guys like hunkered down behind like the barrier that's going to protect me from the water when the dam goes, and I just like sit and chill the fuck out. Meanwhile, Finding is over there, and I literally have him just kind of sneak around the map because he can fly, sneak around the side of the map, come up on the boss, and then he has this if he crits while using like the best weapon skill for like the weapon he was like equipped with when I got him, he kills the boss in one hit. And so I had to so I save state because I'm using Metafin for the Saturn emulation. This would be so much harder if you actually had to play this, because you'd actually have to go back and like level up this whole other group of dudes. So I'm glad. Thank goodness for emulation. So I move him around, and I think I had to reset 5 times before, because he would use the super attack consistently, but I had to wait for it to crit, because when it crits, then because the guy you're fighting has like 180 hit points, and I was like, damn, dude, you hit someone with this and crit, it like absolutely destroys them. And I really haven't used the save state too much, just when it's like annoying. Like I use it against the last boss, just because I don't want to keep fighting, because it's like, oh, this is like annoying. So it's very effective. Anyway, so we kill that guy, and then that release, and then like the crew is like, we did it. We send the smoke up, we release the water, and Finding makes some comment about like, oh, normally we would just release it a little bit at a time, but this time we're going to use it for something more intense. So we got to release the whole thing. And at some point, before Finding does his thing where we're just like hanging out by the castle wall, the Titan comes up and he uses some of his like super attacks, and they're pretty intense. And I guess I think in the guide that I'm using, it mentioned that in the Japanese version, which I don't think this is the Japanese version I'm using, that's been translated. I think it's just the original Saturn version that came out that I played when I was a kid. That you can kill the Titan. It has 6,000 hit points, but if you really want to, you can take care of it. I was like, no, we're good. We're just gonna hunker down. The nice thing about the battles in this game that didn't proceed in previous games is that when you go from like battle to battle within the battle system situation, like this happened in the Heroes Lair too, or the Heroes Super Dungeon or whatever. And when you have these like multiple levels, is that as long as someone's alive, you get all your hit points back and all your magic points back. So you can just, that first battle, you can really go to town, which is nice. Which it just like you clobber the shit out of things. Like I got like 3 dudes who can cast like Spark 3. Like that does so much damage to like a huge swath of guys. And then I have like all this other shit too. Anyway, So the Titan was like somewhat impressive. And then so when the water comes, it wipes away all of Elrond's forces, and it washes the Titan away, and it's like, hooray! And then Elrond finally comes out, and he's like, Nani desu ka? The fuck happened? Swept all my troubles away. But he won't surrender. We're like, hey man, you surrender. And he's like, no. And he's like, I will not be stopped. I'm going to usurp my father's throne. I'm going to kill him and my brothers, and I'm going to kill you, and then the people will love me, and then I'll be the new emperor. And then we're like, bro, why are you being such an asshole? And he's like, but yeah, you don't know what it's like to be the second son. I get nothing. I get no respect. Something. I'm not going to get the empire, so I have to swipe it all away. And then Palaces is like, man, he must be stopped. The darkness is like really overwhelming him. And we're like, yeah, no joke. So we fight, and we beat the shit out of him. He does 2 attacks per turn, but sometimes he just like attacks twice, and so like that'll like kill most of the guys. But I mean, I'm surrounding him with like dudes, right? And he also can cast Spark 3, I want to say, with like the sword he's like putzing around with. But Spark 3, so we have spells that can like resist magic, and so I just cast them on everybody constantly. And so the Spark 3, it does like half the hit points of somebody. And he's got some mages that are like throwing sparks around too. So it can kind of like overwhelm you. But I just like, I ran up there with like Masquin, Noon, or yeah, his name's Noon. And Symbios, who all have Spark 3. And we sparked the 3 shit out of everybody who was like sitting around, and killed those mages pretty quick. So they did some damage, but it wasn't like that devastating because of resist and because of my Spark 3 love affair against their faces. Anyway, so that was fun. And then once they're all dead, he is like, oh, another thing I do, the guide suggested, and so hopefully this pans out, is like unequip all your weapons and just have them in your inventory, because probably that lets you carry them forward, while if you're equipped with them, you don't have them or something. I don't know. It mentions like battle 24 of like scenario 3, which is like the very end of these games, I think, because each one of these games have about 20 to 30 levels in them, the Shining Force games specifically. So I did that, and that just took a minute. And then once he's dead, he is like, oh, I can't believe I fell into your trap. And then Palace is like, you didn't fall into our trap. You gave yourself over to darkness, asshole. That's on you, not us. Like, he clapped back so hard. Anyway, so then we talk more about his betrayal and being the second son and yada yada, and he's going to deal with everybody. And then Palace sums it all up and just being like, oh, so you're an asshole. That's and he's like, this whole thing, all these people dying, all these generals, all these sad sacks, Cybele losing her mind, the Balsamic sect gaining control, and all this, it's all because of a succession issue. And it's like, man, Arryn, you're an asshole. And then you were like, all right, victory. And at that point, Algernon, who is still fucking hanging over the river, he's like, hey guys, I'm here. And right as that goes down, Tristis and Margaret show up. It's like, hey, we did it. We decided to come. Once we saw the flooding, it was like, time to move. And so we ran over as fast as we could. So everything's great. But it's not. Because Yasha, who's some ninja-looking guy, shows up to rain on our parade. So he was ordered by Dominic, the Emperor, to watch over Artwin, but not to interfere. Nonetheless, he is upset with Tristis because Tristis broke his word and is fighting dishonorably while Arryn fought honorably this whole time. And I'm like, the fuck are you talking about? Literally, Arryn was like, Arryn kidnapped the son, and then got Wilmer to make a promise that he would keep Tristis locked up. There, at no point was Tristis like involved in this game of like Thrones here. He was literally locked up against his will, didn't know why, finally escaped, was going to invade and fight, and we told him, don't do that because they might hurt Algernon, and he's like, all right, I'm going to wait for your signal. Like, at what point did Arwen even speak to Tristis in this fucking like translation or like whatever? Like, that never fucking happened. So Yasha's just a bigger asshole. He's a gaslighting asshole. And I fucking hate that guy. And I hope I get to kill him at some point. Because fuck that guy. Unless he's like part of Midian's team in Snare 2 and he's awesome. Then I'll be forgiven because the ninjas are pretty good in this game so far. Anyway, so the whole time he's like saying this, and then even Tristis is like, yeah, you're right. And I'm like, what do you mean he's right? He totally gaslighted you. That never fucking happened. Anyway, so then being the asshole that he is, the super asshole, like everyone's an asshole, but Yasha is like a gaslighting asshole. He's even worse. So he cuts Algernon's ropes and then bounces out of there. And Sinbias is about to jump in to rescue him, and Pallas is like, no, you'll die too. But dun-dun-dun, Finding, who was at the dam, who's like, I gotta run back and help. So it is accounted for. He shows up and he's like, I got him! And everyone's like, yay! And Algernon gives a big hug to his mommy and daddy, and then it fades to white and the credits roll. And you might think the game's over, but nope. We're now on top of the castle. We got Tristis, Palsis, Baratron's finally back. He's doing all right. Synbios and Dantaris, we're all standing on top of the castle, and Palsis and Baratron are talking about the Titans' rampage and all this stuff. And Palsis is like, hey, it's going to be okay. We got the gold mine. We have lookout towers, got a lot of stuff, or look over towers, so we'll be able to like rebuild and get our lives back in order. And then Baratron's like, oh, but you know, the cost of life is not worth the cost of buildings or something can't be replaced. And then there's a lot of dick writing going on. Like everybody's like, oh, let's all praise Synbios. And then someone else is like, oh, but we must also thank Baratron for his great leadership. And oh, if it was not for Tristis being held captive and breaking his word or some bullshit. Or Pallas' great, well, yada, yada. It's so dumb. And then someone the conversation slowly moves over to like, oh, the wall's impenetrable, and we got that secret passage, but Tybalt's guarding that, so he should be okay. And then Synbios is like, maybe we should go help, and they're like, no. Tristis insists that we go get rest with our force, and then Finding comes rolling up, and he's like, oh no, I got dire news. And we're like, what? And it's like, the Imperials have breached their wall and are headed to the castle, and it's like, what about Tybalt's army? They've been annihilated completely. It's like, damn. So we all head down the castle to the bridge. And then Baratron's standing by himself, and he bemoans the fighting and the suffering, and he's like, Dominic and I should have teamed up because we have to fight the Vandals, and that's a true threat, and yada, yada, yada. So anyway, so now we're on the bridge, and we run into Prince Median, and we chat for a moment. Somewhat is like, oh, you know, we have to fight. You killed Erwin and something. And we're like, why'd you guys invite something? We can't be friends anymore. And then Dominic shows up, that asshole, the Emperor, and he's laughing. He's like, it's been 20 years. And then Baratron calls him out, and he's like, wait a second, you planned your own abduction. You're the one who's conspiring with Bolsame sect, so you could do all this bullshit. And then Dominic like taps his nose. He's like, oh, you're very discerning. You figured it out. I was never your friend, or I was always the enemy. And this whole thing was like a plot by me to like start a giant war, to kill all my generals, and to have my son die, and do all this stuff just so I could get to this point. And then some fucking jabroni I've never seen before called Fitterate, he speaks up, and he's saying, wait a second, I've seen that guy before. And the Emperor's like, ooh, is that Synbios? I have to thank you for your help. Because, and I think what he's implying is that because we killed Erwin, Median, who swore that he would get revenge on anybody who killed like his brother at some point. I don't know, maybe we'll find out more in scenario 2, hopefully. But now we have to fight Midian, because Midian has no choice, because like his honor or some old bullshit. And then Campbell and Dantaris start getting like real feisty with each other. Campbell is the Dantaris of the Midian faction. And then Synbios and Midian like calm the fuck down. And then at some point Campbell's like, but what about her? She must be saved. And it's like, who the fuck is her? We'll find out, I'm sure, hopefully. And again, Baratron calls Dominic out for setting this up and like punishing his sons and like being just a wicked asshole. And then he like laughs about it some more, and that's the end. And that's finally the end of Shining Force, the first scenario. So it was good. It was just as good as I remember. It was still fun. I'm super excited to finally be able to play after like 20 some odd years the rest of these scenarios. So I'm super excited to get to that point. But that's going to be the next video. But yeah, thank you for joining me on this journey. I hope you enjoyed the recollections with me. And I will go ahead and like, share, subscribe, comment, and I will catch you guys later. All right, bye.